Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Time for your DC Spotlight for the week of September 24th, 2025. Big week, 15 books, partly because two of the books that were originally solicited for coming out last week got pushed to this week. So it's a huge week. That being said, to me, there was a big discrepancy between like the top five and then sort of everything else. Yeah, I mean, not that I thought the majority of books were bad, but there were some books that I really just did not enjoy this week. Like maybe some of the titles I enjoyed the least, or individual issues I enjoyed the least since the All In era has begun. But I don't know, like partly because we're just, I mentioned it before, we're in a little bit of this lame duck period before the DC KO event kicks off. But the other thing is with New York Comic Con coming up and these big events coming up and what have you, things are being teased, things are being previews are being released, people are reading them. I've read ahead a little bit, which I try not to do, but at the same time it's like other people are talking about it, it gets me curious. And then the other part is, just having time to cover all this stuff. So if I read ahead when I have a little bit of time, then it just makes things easier on me. So yeah, the week was a little up and down for me, I guess. How was it for you, Rocky, overall?
We're going to be reviewing 15 comics this week, two comics from last week that were delayed. And so it was a big week, but I thought really my top, there's 6 or 7 that I liked, that I enjoyed, but there was at least a solid half that I didn't really tickle my fancy too much. So I kind of agree with you that maybe it's the excitement of what we know is coming in October. This feels like a little bit of the lull before the storm, but if hopefully, if people do feel the same way we do this week, we can both say with confidence, with no spoilers, that October is looking to be a blast.
Yeah, and it was not to say there wasn't books this week that were a blast as well. I mean, there's a couple.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a couple of awesome ones for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, my number one book. I was I was smiling when I was reading it. It was fantastic. Some fantastic moments, great moments. Don't forget, everybody, if you're so inclined, I am still trying to get together some funds to go to New York Comic Con because I had an unexpected expense come up. So I'm not there yet. I still only had like one person donate, which is a little discouraging. But I've been selling some books and uh, trying to get some other things lined up so that I'll be able to make it. And then another thing I've been meaning to mention, I keep forgetting. We used to do the independent spotlight every week, but again, it's just a time thing with having the time to read the books and cover them, or what have you. But I definitely want to get back to covering some independent books. So one of the other things that I've been thinking about for a long time is doing a live show weekly. It'd be on the same time every week, like probably on Wednesday evenings or maybe on Fridays. Because I know there are certain YouTube channels that do that to great success, and we really enjoy engaging in the comments and what have you with people for the most part. But it'd be fun to do, and we've done live shows in the past, but it'd be fun to have that live engagement. So we'll throw it out there to everybody out there listening and watching. If you all would be open to a live show, and again, like no commitment. We're not saying, hey, you got to be there every time or whatever. But if we did a weekly show where we covered some independent books, and we could talk about Marvel and DC stuff too. It doesn't have to all be indie, because if people showed up for the live show and they were asking questions, they asked about a Marvel book or a DC book, and we've read it, we'd certainly talk about that. But anyway, just let us know if you're curious, if you would show up for a live show. If we did it on a weekly basis, same time every week, for the most part, to try to again have a regular schedule, because that's the big thing with a live show. You can't just do them randomly, although that's been done in the past as well. But you got to, people need to know when you're going to do it, so they can show up. But again, just a way to do something a little bit different and get a little bit more engagement from the audience is what we're thinking. So anyway, all that being said, let's go ahead and kick it off with opening up one of these packs. I still have quite a few to go, actually. these Fleer Brilliance Superman cards that I got from San Diego Comic-Con a couple months ago. I still have the pins open. I'll probably do pins next week. The fig pins that are really cool. So we're kicking it off with. Can you see that? Titano.
Yeah, a little reflective. Yeah.
So he looks pretty cool. Giant monkey. Oh, Livewire. There's another great Superman villain. Showed up in Superman Adventures cartoon first.
That's right.
The metallic for her really works. Classic Perry White. That looks like John Byrne, the John Byrne version.
Yeah, that's right.
White. Yeah. And we've got another classic cover, and it's Superman #1. So I've got two. I think I've got two of the Action Comics #1, and now we've got a Superman #1. So that's pretty cool. Another classic Superman villain who showed up recently.
Oh, Maxima.
Maxima and Dan Jurgens, Dan Mora special that came out. That supersized special. So yeah, that was a good pack. That was fantastic.
That was good.
Maxima definitely an underrated Superman villainess who probably doesn't show up enough. I mean, at one point she was almost an anti-hero. She was part of the Justice League for a little while, trying to get Superman to marry her. So all right, well, let's dive into the books since we got a lot to cover. We're going to kick it off with Wonder Woman #25. That again originally was slated to come out last week. Now, typically I'm throwing Wonder Woman up in my top 5, and Rocky's got it like all the way on the bottom, worst comic ever made, blah blah blah. I'm on the Rocky bandwagon this week, man. I don't know what it was about issue number 25 that I just did not enjoy it. So anyway, written by Tom King, Daniel Sampere with Jorge Fornes on art, Tomeo Morey on colors, Clayton Kalan letters. There's some non-linear storytelling, which isn't a huge surprise, being that Tom King's writing it. We almost get these flash forwards to this this war that has been hinted at. Those are the Jorge Fornes pages. I get that it's this this war that's been hinted at or whatever, Civil War, and one of the covers, if you're watching this on eBay, Rocky has it up there. The monarch, this female, whatever, and supposedly that's the war, and we've seen hints at it, before with the streets of or the beaches rather of Themyscira, showing Wonder Woman and Hippolyta dead along with all the other Amazonians just kind of laying on the beach, and hints of this Wonder War, and I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of the foreshadowing and, oh, this is so awful and whatever. Just, if we're going to get there to the point of having this Wonder War, whatever that means, it seems like it's going to tie into the sovereign, this monarch, from my understanding, is the daughter of the Amazon that kicked this whole thing off. What was her name? Emily.
Emily.
That supposedly killed the people in the bar in Wyoming or Montana or wherever it was, all the way back in the first issue of this run of Wonder Woman over 2 years ago. So apparently her daughter, grows up with some sort of hatred for the outside world, maybe due to persecution of her mother or whatever. We just don't know. But eventually we're going to get to that point. And supposedly, and people are talking about, oh, this is the first appearance of her as monarch, because we do see her sitting on a throne here, and obviously time travel is a part of it because she's wearing a Legion ring, she's wearing a Green Lantern ring. There's just all these hints and clues and foreshadowing or whatever. And again, if we're going to get to that point and it's all a big story that's being tied together by Tom King, then that's fine. But let's just get to it. And as much as I am a fan of Tom on a regular basis, there are times where I sort of think just, it doesn't always have to be so convoluted. It's okay to just tell a story from A to B to C to D. And I know that's a complaint that other people have had about him. And most of the time, I'm okay. I'm fine with going along for the ride or whatever. But every once in a while, it just seems like things are getting complicated just for the sake of making them complicated. It starts to feel a little pretentious at times, or just a little like it's in service of itself rather than in service to the story. So I don't know. For the most part, I've been a fan of this run. I've defended it, especially when Rocky hasn't been a big fan. But once in a while, I don't know if an issue just doesn't land for me, or what it is, where I'm just like, I don't know. And the Daniel Sampere art is gorgeous, and I think Jorge Fornes is fantastic as well. He's got such an interesting, I know people have compared him to David Mazzucchelli in terms of style. I think Jorge has a really interesting style. I think back to like the Warshak 12 issue mini he did with Tom King, but his style, it's not hugely dissimilar from Daniel Sampere in terms of the way they lay panels out on the page or their sense of storytelling. But in terms of actual line work, how line weights, detail, textures, they're very different. And I think that bothered me a little bit as well, which I didn't necessarily pick up on when I read it the first time. But when I went back and I was flipping through trying to understand why it didn't land for me, I was like, this art it's a little jarring without being obvious about it, because it's a little bit different. So yeah, I don't know. This one just didn't land for me. But all that being said, while again this isn't the first appearance of the Monarch, because we saw her as a baby, but I don't know. I mean, we won't know for years what the collector market decides is truly the Monarch's first appearance. It's gonna be her as a baby, like John Kent, right? His first appearance is whenever he was a baby. He's not recognizable at all as the character that we all loved when he was a 10, 12-year-old boy. It's certainly not recognizable as the character he is now. But nobody's ever thought, hey, we're going to care about the John Kent appearance where he's a little older and has the T-shirt with the symbol and the cape. Nobody cares about that. They only care about that convergence issue. So I don't know what the first appearance of them are. It might be this one. So, I say that, for speculation purposes if you want to pick this up. But yeah, this for me might be my least favorite issue of the 25 issues of Wonder Woman so far. So we'll have to see where it goes from here. But I just sort of feel like the issue didn't do much. There was some action on, the island with the Mouse Man stuff or whatever. But you're pulled outside of that by all these flash forwards, with Bruce Wayne being hanged and with seeing the Monarch for the first time or whatever. That, to me, having those flash forwards pulled the focus off the Mouse Man stuff. But even the Mouse Man stuff felt like it's starting to drag a little bit, and probably because they devoted time and space in this issue to the flash forward. So yeah, maybe it's a structure thing. I don't know. It's still hard for me to put my finger on why I didn't like this issue. But out of the 15 books that we're ranking, this came in number 13 for me. So that's, exceedingly low when it comes to me ranking a Wonder Woman book. I definitely have never ranked one in King's Run that low. So what about you, Rocky? Where do you have it? Probably 15?
No, actually, no. I haven't. Well, actually, I put History of the DCU issue 3. I sort of put it at the bottom, so it's not really in my rankings. I didn't. So I put it near the bottom, even though I love it as a history thing. But I actually had Wonder Woman 25 at same ranking as you, 13. It's funny. There's just I can articulate why I haven't enjoying this series. The whole Mouseman scenario, I just haven't been a fan of. I'm not gonna reiterate my points on that. I do find it. I find it a little bit interesting that we know that this future Wonder War is going to come, and we still don't know what it is. And all we know is that apparently Emily's daughter is really, really angry at Wonder Woman, and at some point is going to kill all the Amazons on an island, because we got a flashback before. That in and of itself might be somewhat interesting, but we literally have zero idea why, what's the motivation, and ultimately I'm still wondering who cares. And then it felt very, very forced. That did we really need to see Green Arrow, Aquaman, and Bruce Wayne hung, and Superman all tortured, all basically saying how great Wonder Woman is speaking to some unknown party saying, oh, Wonder Woman's so great. Superman talking about hope, and he utters the words Wonder Woman somewhere in the future. Okay, we get it. Somewhere in the future, everyone's going to die. I mean, Wonder Woman, we already know that somewhere in the future, Wonder Woman, already I know she's utterly, spectacularly failed. Why? Because all the Justice League has failed. So she hasn't really stepped up to the plate and prevented all that from happening. So how great can she really be anyway? But she's great because I guess she's the lone member of the Justice League that survives. And look at how great Wonder Woman is. I feel like I'm being told how great Wonder Woman is. I don't think Tom King needs to do that. Tom King has succeeded in the past in showing various issues where Wonder Woman has been real kick-ass in battle, like when she battled all her rogues gallery there. But this issue, for that reason, amongst others, just didn't hit for me either. But we'll see. I mean, the Wonder War, it's got a cool name, but what is it exactly? I need more information. So, but I'm disappointed in this issue too.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's all these flash forwards where we're told things rather than shown. I mean, you're right. That's just let's get. If I was kind of making the same point. Like, if we're going to get to this Wonder War, let's get to it. So at the end of the day, I think it's the lack of context for what's going to happen that's just hurting this issue. So anyway, up next we have Catwoman number 79, Torunn Gronbekk on script, Daniela Beyruth on art for the present, Patricio Del Pesce on art for the past, and then Patricio Del Pesce does the colors with Steve Wands on letters. The art for the past I really loved because it had like that old school like newspaper printing process, where it was all like a little bit of color dots. We know it's not really that, but it was cool that they added that layer because it reminded me, of comics before they were colored with computers and what have you. All digital art or what have you. So that was really cool to see. As far as the story goes, I'm enjoying this. We've kind of moved on from the initial big arc that Torunn Gronbekk was telling. Yet Selena is still in Europe, and so it still has that same international spy intrigue sort of feel. But in this issue, we have the Falcons from Gotham City actually heading over to Europe. So it's almost like she's slowly bringing Gotham City into the storyline, as it were, and I appreciated that. Rather than having Catwoman go to Gotham City, to some extent, she's having Gotham City come to Catwoman, which I thought was interesting. So, so I did enjoy this. I still am trying to find the time to go back and read the entirety of the run, kind of over a weekend or whatever. I haven't had time. Like, spent most of this weekend, the free time I had, either other than reading comics, like trying to finally get my books organized. I think I've talked about it before, how I'm going to organize everything by year and month. So I finally, out of my whatever it is, 85 long boxes I have or whatever, I finally have everything all separated by year.
Wow.
Now I got to go in and start doing things by month. Well, first I have to get all the boxes in order, because as I was emptying stuff, like I got like 2020 over here, and then 2017's over here, and then 2002's over here. So I got to get everything in chronological order now, put all the boxes in order, which is just, moving a lot of stuff around like Tetris, and then start organizing by month. Yeah. But so anyway, I did enjoy this issue, but because of the large number of books, it only came in at number 11 for me. So anyway, what are your thoughts on it, Rocky? Anything to add?
Yeah, I actually, I've enjoyed this. I enjoyed this. It was nice to see actually Catwoman in this comic book more so than just Selena Kyle or her alternative identity, Ellie, which she had for the longest time. I'm so glad that that initial long for story arc was done. This feels better. This feels like it felt like a little bit more self-contained. I hope this doesn't drag on for too long. I really like the artist that did the first part. I'm not sure who did you say her name was. Is that Beyruth?
Patricio Del Pesce.
Del Pesce, yeah, I really like that art. I prefer that art to the regular artist, which hasn't really resonated with me. I think that there's a decided lack of the necessary sexiness in this level for this comic. This is one of the things that DC should. DC usually has a lot of. They're usually pretty darn good lately at putting artists to comics. This one, I think, was a little bit of a misstep. I say that with great respect. I know art's subjective, but it's missing a sexiness factor for me. Story-wise, though, Gronbekk, I mean, I enjoy it. And you said it. I don't need to say more. It's sort of bringing Gotham into Paris and sort of internationalizing the spirit of Gotham elsewhere, with Selena having some time outside of Gotham, so you don't have to have Batman show up and ruin her day. So, but at the end of the day, it just, wasn't really compelling enough for me, and it was near. I put it near the bottom. It's coming in number 12 for me.
Yeah, I forgot to mention when we talked about Wonder Woman that there's a lot of banger covers. I want Mark Spears, who's super popular. He's got one that looks almost like a trading card for Wonder Woman 25. I'm sure that one's going to be popular. It's not necessarily one of my favorites. There's a pumpkin spice one rather that I thought was just fantastic by Yasmin Putri, where Wonder Woman's looking very sexy in a witch hat. And there's also a David Nakayama one, and then the Monarch gets her first full cover appearance, and that one's by Daniel Sampere. So, as much as I didn't like the issue, I think I might be picking up a couple of those Wonder Woman covers because they're just fantastic. And then Catwoman's got some great covers too. There's a Dan Panosian Catwoman cover where she's holding this little tiny cat, like stuffed cat that looks great. And then Frank Cho has one of his like ballpoint pen style covers, which is great as well. So yeah, some really, really nice covers for a couple of those books that were supposed to come out last week. They're a little bit late. So anyway, moving on. Excuse me. We have Absolute Wonder Woman number 12. Kelly Thompson is the writer. Hayden Sherman on art. Jordi Belair with colors. Becca Carey on letters. This is one of the ones that's been getting a lot of buzz. Again, speculator alert. There's a first appearance in here of an absolute version of a character that shows up on the last page. So if you don't want to be spoiled, you might want to skip forward a little bit because we're going to be talking about it. But all that being said, this only came in at number 8 for me. Again, it wasn't that I just enjoyed it. It's just that there were so many great books this week that, this one just got pushed a little bit for me. So this is probably like right at the rank where I would say the books that I really enjoyed, like 8 and lower, and then 9 and above were the ones that they were just kind of there for me, or I didn't enjoy them at all. But this was in your top 5, Rocky. So I'm gonna I'll let you talk a little bit more about it, and you can tell everybody who that first appearance is.
Well, thanks. This was in my top 3, and I think I've had some criticism with Kelly Thompson's Absolute Wonder Woman because I've got some extreme bias in that regard, but she's won me over with just good storytelling. I'm not a huge fan of focusing too much on mythology all the time, and my initial criticism was that I thought Absolute Wonder Woman should be just a little bit more different, a little bit more aggressive. I've since changed my mind. She's won me over by telling, frankly, a Wonder Woman that is more closer to her mainstream counterpart in terms of her morality and her mercy and her compassion, and it really works given the story she's telling. And in particular, in this battle she's in Area 41, she's battling Cleo here, and she's already met Io last issue, and Wonder Woman is trying to arrange it so that Io and all the other people that are captive there escape, these other sort of mer people that Cleo is in control of. And what really works here is, and again, it's by Hayden Sherman's art's fantastic. Once again, he impresses the hell out of me with the way that he does his layouts and the way that he just puts the action on the page. I think it's just gorgeous. And the way Wonder Woman the way she battles Cleo here, and she's doing her damnedest to try to set up and sort of keep Cleo distracted while Ferdinand and Io essentially escape. And I like the mercy. I like the mercy that Wonder Woman shows Cleo. She basically gives her an option because Wonder Woman, with Io's help, sets it up so that she basically flooded the underground, allowing all of them to escape, even Cleo. And Cleo's from Atlantis, and we don't know anything about the absolute Atlantis yet, but we've met the first character from Atlantis, and that's in Cleo. And it's Wonder Woman. She shows a surprising amount of mercy here. She takes a beating from Cleo, and at the same time, she also holds her own. I have it on a page right now for those watching on YouTube. It's my favorite page of the issue. Hayden Sherman's art is fantastic here. Not only does he draw a gorgeous Wonder Woman, but he draws you can see the tattoos on her arm, and when you look at her face, you can actually see the light from the spear, from the sort of trident. The water blue light, the blue light of the water trident is glaring and shining off her face. I mean, the color work and the shadow work is just incredible on the page, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And I got to tell you, when this series first began, I say again, I'm surprised at how much Hayden Sherman has upped his game on this. Absolute fantastic, and it just really works. And then at the end, Io escapes, everyone escapes, and just when a very interesting thing happens when Io, who's an Amazon, she thinks she's escaping. She thinks she's escaping into essentially man's world, back into man's world. But as soon as she gets back into man's world, Steve Trevor and Ada Candy and all of them notice all of a sudden Io disappears. And so in a bolt of lightning. So I think something's going on here. I think Zeus or the gods are preventing Amazons from ever making it back to Earth and so because Io ends up getting sent back to Themyscira, where she is discovered by, spoiler alert, Hippolyta, and Io finds her way back to Paradise Island, and Hippolyta is very happy, exclaiming, "She's alive! She's alive! Diana's alive! The princess lives," and that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So we got, again, we got some progression here. We got a lot of questions. What happened to Io? Why did she get disappear in a bolt of lightning and showed up on Themyscira? I suspect that clearly the gods have more power at play in keeping the Amazons at bay or keeping them isolated on that island as for some punishment for something that they may have done in the past. And Wonder Woman, of course, she prays for a sign that Io is okay and made it back, and a dove comes down with a leaf, and just very symbolic. Full props to Kelly Thompson. She's really, really digging into her mythology here, and she does it in a very masterful way, in a way that's easy to understand. My biggest complaint with mythological tales like this is that often sometimes you get lost in the mythology a little bit. The writers, actually, I'm going to get shot down for this, but I think George Perez went a little bit too deep into mythology at times. Kelly Thompson gives just the right amount while grounding it. And anyways, I really enjoyed this issue, and it made my top 3.
Yeah, you always like to stir up controversy when you're talking about Wonder Woman. So I do want to shout out, there's a variant cover, open order variant cover C by Mateus Manhanini, Manhanini, Manhanini. I don't know. I'm butchering the name, I'm sure, but regardless, it's gorgeous. That's it right there. It looks awesome. So, yeah. Definitely pick that up if you are so inclined. All right, moving on. We have Immortal Legend Batman #2. Now, the first issue that came out a month ago I think it was my book of the week. It was absolutely amazing. I wasn't as big of a fan of this second issue. It only came in at #7 for me. Written by Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom. Erica Durso and Dan Moore are the artists. Igor Monti and Tamara Bonvillain on colors, and then Becca Carey on letters. I still enjoyed it. It didn't have quite the same fresh feel that the first issue did. But it still, I thought, was very, very good. I did feel like, and we get to see this, and this is an Elseworlds tale, and we get to see this Elseworlds universe, if you will, or Elseworlds multiverse. We get to see their version of Bane showing up here. But I think probably the reason it didn't quite land for me was the first one felt like, again, it felt new and it felt fresh and it felt exciting. This one felt more like it was checking a box. Like, okay, we're seeing this new version of Batman. We got to be sure we see all the different, versions of his rogues gallery, as it were. So let's make sure we show Bane and, check the box or whatever. Again, I still really, really enjoyed it. But it just didn't rise to that level of having me super excited like the first issue did. But it's still very, very good, and the art, I think, is really outstanding as well. So where did this come in for you, Rocky? I don't think you had it in your top 5 either.
No, I had it in #7. Lady Shiva shows up here. The Immortal Batman's version of Lady Shiva shows up, as well as Matches Malone. where Batman goes undercover, matches Malone on basically, I guess, sort of like a starship, and in order to capture some terrorists that tend to rob the various starships. And so I thought it was pretty well done. I think there was some decent character work. There was some flashbacks to the training that a younger Batman had, and then as he got older, a lot of the dialogue and the references, there were connections between the character work of the flashbacks and the present day, culminating in that battle between Batman and Bane. And it's particularly worthy of note that Batman likely would have lost. Immortal Batman would have lost his battle with Bane if not for his. That he found allies. He found the people that he was helping actually helped him, and so I like that. This is not. He might be an immortal Batman, but he's not. In fact, he's only immortal in terms of legacy. He's not immortal in terms of his power set. He's not. Clearly, already we know he's not always the strongest person in the room, and I think that adds a little bit of interest. I think that makes him more interesting, adds some element of humanity to him, and makes him more interesting as a character. And I actually enjoyed this one just maybe a tad. Yeah, it was on par with the first one for me. The first one, I don't think I had it in my top 5. I don't think, but in any event, I'm enjoying this. I don't know. I forget, Jace. Is miniseries or is this a full ongoing series?
No, I think it's 6. I want to say 6 issues.
6?
Maybe it's 8 issues.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so. Yeah, it's definitely limited. Let's see. I just had it open. Let me see if I can find out exactly how many.
That's fine.
So far we have 5 issued, but I know it's at least 6. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, number 7. So wow. So we had Wonder Woman 25 the same. We have Immortal Legend Batman number 2 the same, which is interesting because I know we have some that are quite different. Anyway, next up is Detective Comics number 1001. This is from writer Tom Taylor. We have Mikel Janin on art, including the colors, and then Wes Abbott handles the letters. I thought this was really excellent. It came in my top 5. It's in your top 5 as well. Just a great start. I'm really loving Tom. This may be my favorite thing that Tom Taylor has done at DC. His run on Detective so far, and we're only in the second arc now, but. I'm gonna let you go first. Give us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I really enjoy this too, and yeah, he seems really at home here writing Batman, and this is what I really love. This issue, what really stood out is Tom Taylor really put the detective in Detective Comics in this issue. Wow, Batman was really on his A game here. Basically, there's a ship that's wandering into Gotham Harbor that crashes into a larger ship, and there's people that are drowning, and so Batman shows up on the scene. And one thing that Tom Taylor is just so excellent at doing is that when Batman shows up, there's always that inner voice of Batman that you get as he explains what he's doing, and he explains how dangerous it is, and he explains what he's doing to help people, and how he trained his body to do this or that, and how and by doing that you see how confident Batman is, and you see how well trained he is, and it's very much, it's one of those tropes that we love about Batman because he's kick-ass, and Tom Taylor masters it so well. Batman, when he rescues the people that crashed into the ship. Well, this I guess, I'm not sure what it is. It's an old maybe oil refinery liner, but the people on the ship, there's 41 people. Batman goes on the ship. He finds 41 people that are all dead, and they've died. They're in different. They've all died at different times, so didn't all die at the same time, and they're in different states of decomposition. The bodies, it's very much an initial mystery. Batman, again, Tom Taylor does such a good job showing how Batman's communicating with Oracle, how he's, Oracle, tell me what I've missed. He's scanning the scene, so it's a perfect mesh of the detective work, the technology, the communication with Oracle, and Batman's own skills at detective work. And how methodically he goes through the ship and he puts the pieces together as to what might be happening. The art is just fantastic, and you get a strong sense of what's going on. And Batman comes across a young boy, the sole survivor on the ship, who's also infected with some kind of disease that affects the amygdala of the brain, and it's really it plays. There's a tragedy to it and a horror to it. So you got the heroism, you got the cool Batman moments, and he's kick ass. But then you got the tragedy, and of course you got the sick child, and you got Batman making that sacrifice, and then you got the warning written on the wall in the ship. The fear will end at Gotham. Your courage is coming. Signed by the Lion. Who's the Lion? We don't know. But already is like, oh boy. Batman then dons a mask, literally a breathing mask, because he's worried about being infected. And ultimately, he makes his way off the ship, and he gets Mr. Terrific involved, and they determine that it is a pathogen of some kind. They're not really sure as to the origin, but Batman is infected with this. But just, I got to tell you, for an opening issue for a new arc, this was fantastic. This really was. I mean, I don't know how anybody could read this and not want to come back for more. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like you said, putting the detective in Detective Comics, it's great to see him, on the ship and doing what he needs to do, engaging with Oracle, and I also love the kind of the situation that Tom Taylor puts him in. At the end, he goes to Mr. Terrific. He says, "Hey, this is what I found. It appears to be an infection. I was exposed." You almost wonder though why he didn't put like a mask or a filter on sooner.
Before.
Yeah, he kind of waits, and then by that time the cat's out of the bag. But then there's also at various times where the cowl does kind of cover his nose, and he's got nose filters, whatever. But I mean, we don't know how this infection is transmitted necessarily. But obviously he picks up this kid and carries them. So yeah, there's a lot of mystery, and a lot of interesting kind of detective noirish aspects to the story that Tom Taylor does very, very well. And again, engaging with Mr. Terrific. And I love when Mr. Terrific says, "I'm glad you came to me." And he's like, "I didn't have time for a slower mind." Clearly he knows
Yeah.
he's infected. So Mr. Terrific rather definitely having a moment right now, as we all know, did great in the Superman film. And I saw today on Twitter, James Gunn put out, or some somebody put out a deleted scene that had Mr. Terrific and Crypto. That was pretty funny. So if you haven't seen that,
I'll have to check it out. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it's laugh out loud funny at the end. I'll say that. But the other thing that really, really makes this work, this particular issue of Detective Comics work, is the art from Mikel Janin. Like he's just gorgeous. Like I love his really clean, detailed style for Batman. And you also wonder if whoever this little kid is at the beginning, when he in his imagination, because it does say then, this guy, the impression you get is that he's a criminal, and he calls his son Leo, and he tells his son to hide, and he says, don't be scared. And clearly this guy's done something wrong, right? Like, again, seems to be a criminal of some sort. He's got a gun. He tells his son to hide under the sink. He says everything will be all right. And then in this child's mind, as he's peeking through the cupboard here, he sees this monstrous looking Batman come and grab his dad by the head, pull him out the window, and go flying off. Now, a lot of, foreshadowing here, obviously, right? So it's probably not exactly how it went down, but this kid is apparently remembering. So his dad was probably a bad guy. He probably, got what he deserved. He probably did something he wasn't supposed to, killed somebody, or, hurt somebody really bad or whatever. And Batman was pissed off and went and grabbed him and brought him to justice. Batman had no idea the kid was there under the sink, most likely. But whoever this kid is, in my mind, is this Lion, and we know there's a new Batman villain coming in this arc. And we know he's going to be called the Lion. So little foreshadowing there with this criminal father who calls his son Leo, and his head is even slicked back to some extent, or his hair is slicked back a little bit, like a lion's mane.
Yeah.
And the where I'm coming up with this is I think it was, I want to say the December solicits, which came out recently, and on the cover of maybe it was one of the covers. I can't remember. Anyway, I saw an image somewhere. Maybe it was Tom Taylor that put it out as like a preview image. Oh yeah, it's actually the Christmas Eve issue, December 24th, 2025. So it's issue 1104, and it's the cover has Batman leaping out towards the viewer, and in the background you see kind of this profile of this who what I'm assuming is the Lion, and it looks like a humanoid lion with his hair kind of slicked back the same way that kid did. So who is the Lion? Who is this kid? What's his tie to Batman? Apparently Batman may be a part of his origin. So interesting things that Tom Taylor is doing. Like we saw in the first arc, going back to the earliest days of Thomas Wayne and Joe Chill and what have you. And now it looks like, again, showing up. So another speculator alert, like it definitely seemed like for a long time, we were in a situation where creators weren't really creating any new characters for DC, and everybody's like, oh, they don't want to because they don't have the rights and blah, 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 whatever. But it seems like that is sort of flipped. Like I remember James Tynion creating Punchline, and then it didn't seem like we had any new characters for a long time. And now all of a sudden, partly because of the Absolute Universe, we're getting new versions of characters. But then things that Jeremy Adams is doing in Aquaman and Green Lantern Corps, and now we have Tom Taylor introducing us to a new possible addition to the Rogues Gallery for Batman. Really, really cool. So I definitely have to pick up an extra copy of this to be sure if this Lion hits and becomes a big villain, that I've got an extra copy of the his first appearance. Because there are not really any, in looking at the variant covers, there's not really any that really stand out to me. There's a Del Otto cover that has a bunch of the different villains, but I'm not a big fan of Del Otto's art. There's also a Frank Cho variant that looks okay, and then there's a Bane Hispanic Heritage one. But anyway, I'm really enjoying this. Again, I love what Tom Taylor's doing. It's so interesting. It's like, for me, his Nightwing run was a little up and down. I don't want to say, and this is going to sound weird, like I don't want to say it was inconsistent, because the quality of it was great, but it felt like it was always like above average, and then it would go and would peak and be way above average, and then it would kind of drop down to being just kind of a little bit above average. So there's a lot of up and downs, but it never dipped below where I thought it was a below average book. As opposed to his Detective Comics, I felt like the quality of it's been consistently high, like every issue. I've enjoyed every single issue. I couldn't say the same for his Nightwing. And, at various times, you and I both commented on just how slow the pacing in Nightwing became. And we'd always have the emotional moments. Tom Taylor's always going to get you in the feels, or attempt to anyway. But that Nightwing book, it at times just felt like it was lacking a little bit of action or forward momentum on moving the plot forward. That has not been the case with Detective. It has been paced very, very well. Now, obviously, with any story, you're going to have issues where you have more action than others. That's just the nature of comics and any storytelling, right? You need to have times where the story slows down a little bit, so that when it speeds up, you have a little bit of that contrast, and the big story beats can land, harder than the story beats and parts of the story that are a little bit more necessary but aren't as impactful, right? Like moving characters from point A to point B. That's not going to, cause you to have a certain reaction or, get you emotionally, whatever, but it needs to happen to move the story forward. So there are certainly issues of Detective Comics where we have less action than others. But in terms of just the pacing and how it's moving and the setup, when we do have mysteries that pop up, they're paid off relatively quickly. They don't drag on for a really long time or what have you. Like, I just think back on how many great issues there have been. If we think back to the recent Harvey Bullock issue, where the Penguin and Batman teamed up, that was awesome. Thinking back to, the early issues when Thomas Wayne was just finding out that his dad saved Joe Chill's life. Like, just so many fantastic moments that Tom Taylor has. It's almost like at times he was writing Nightwing, and it was from the perspective of, hey, I really love this character and I want to work on this character, but I don't necessarily have a ton of ideas for this character. I have a few ideas, and so I'm going to kind of sprinkle them throughout. And if I plan on being on the book for X amount of time and I have X number of ideas, this is how they need to be spaced out. As opposed to Batman, the way it feels like is he's got so many ideas for Batman and so many ideas for Batman stories that he's got to get them all in as fast as he can because he doesn't know how long he's going to be on the book. You know, even if he stays on the book for 2, 3, 4 years, he might not have enough time to get to all the ideas that he has. Again, I don't know if, excuse me, I don't know if that's actually true. I'm speculating, but that's how it feels. That's the impression that I'm getting. And you add in the Mikel Janin art, and it's fantastic. So, yeah, no brainer for this to be in my top 5 this week. My top 3, in fact. Now that top 3. Yeah. So, all right. Up next, we have Green Arrow number 28 from writer Chris Condon. Montos is on the art. Colors by Adriana Lucas and letters by Buddy Boudon. I can't ever say that name. Boydon.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, Doin. So if it was Coin, it'd be coin. So Doin,
Bedouin.
Boudon. Yeah, I don't know. It's Beaudoin. I've never met him, and he seems relatively new. I've never seen his name until the last few months on this book. So I apologize, buddy. I'm butchering your name. Hopefully I'll learn how to pronounce it correctly at some point. But before we talk about this, I do want to mention that on Blue Sky over the weekend, Chris Condon did mention that this has been canceled. And sort of the cat was already out of the bag in the solicits for December. It does say it's the final issue. So the one of the cover artists, Torunn Clark, also mentioned how much fun he's been having on the book, but that it was his going to be ending in December, and he was disappointed as well. And then Christopher Condon in his newsletter kind of expounded on it because he said he was done writing it, and he wanted to kind of clarify that it wasn't that he was done writing it because he wanted to move on to other things or anything of that nature. He was done writing it because it's canceled. And then Scott Snyder came out and said, as much as he's been enjoying Green Arrow, at the end of the day, this was one of those decisions that he says was above his pay grade, but that, it was down to sales. He did confirm that just not enough people were buying that. And that happens sometimes. And that kind of sparked a greater conversation in his Twitter or on his Twitter about how sometimes critically acclaimed books and even books that are award winners, people assume because they're critically acclaimed and well reviewed and because they're winning awards that they're selling well. And that's not always the case. And he specifically brought up Gotham Central, which was very critically acclaimed and won multiple awards and was consistently one of DC's lowest selling titles. And obviously it has a bit of a cult following now, and it sells very well in collections and what have you. But at the time, it was constantly on the verge of about to be canceled. So all that being said, I think this Green Arrow run by Chris Condon is the best Green Arrow run probably since the early Mike Grell stuff with the Longbow Hunters and what have you. And we've talked before about how it shares a lot in common in sensibility with the Longbow Hunters. This is getting Green Arrow out of the superhero aspect and superhero corner of the DCU. I mean, it's like it couldn't be further away from what Joshua Williamson did with the time travel and all that stuff and fantastical elements. This is Green Arrow, street level fighting for social justice, which is really who he is as a character, right? Fighting corporations that are polluting things, fighting in this case against this guy who's poisoning people with drugs, illicit drugs and what have you. So it's just such a grounded way to approach the character. And I think the way the character should be written for the most part. I mean, I'm fine with him being a member of the Justice League and getting out there on some fantastical adventures because you can do some sort of fish out of water stories and at times Green Arrow can be our point of view character because he doesn't have any superpowers. So it's easier for us to sort of put ourselves in his shoes, so to speak. But if you really want to tell some emotional stories and get at the heart of Green Arrow and tell some complex stories and stories where there aren't easy answers. You think back to probably the most well-known run of Green Arrow would be when he was teamed up with Green Lantern, the Hard Traveling Heroes. We've all seen those very famous covers. There's or scenes where the African American males going, I see you help the yellow skins and the green skins and the purple skins. Why didn't you help the brown skins? Here on Earth. Those are interesting questions to ask, right? Like all these superheroes out there saving the galaxy, and they can't solve like civil rights issues or drug issues or that sort of thing. So for me, Green Arrow as a character, he's always epitomized this. I mean, those Hard Traveling Heroes issues were like early to mid 70s. I mean, that's over 50 years ago now. So that's interesting that, and in a way, a little bit disappointing that we as a society are still facing those same kind of issues. But it's important to tell stories where we're talking about those issues and confronting those issues, and stories and fictional characters and what have you that are confronted with those kind of situations where there are no easy answers. That's important to have that, because it starts conversations and it gets people thinking. So you have that as the foundation, and then you add in just well-paced story, great action and drama, and a little bit of a crime noir feel. You have Montos with the gritty street level art, and you have what I think is the perfect creator team for this character. Like the way that it matches up is just fantastic. I mean, I had no idea actually that Chris Condon had interest in writing Green Arrow, but then when I heard that he was coming on the title, I was like, oh, that's a good matchup based on his style and the things that he writes. I think that would work really, really well. And I was kind of hoping Jacob Phillips, his many-time collaborator, was coming on with him, but turned out it was Montos. Hey, that's a great matchup as well. So this has been firing on all cylinders for me. I cannot tell you how disappointed I was when I heard it was canceled. So, yeah, there's always every chance it could be uncanceled if these last few issues sell really, really well. So I encourage everybody, go out there and pick it up. And if you enjoy it, definitely put it out there on social media. Hey, DC, don't cancel this, what have you, because we're really enjoying it. So this came in my top 5 at number 5 for me. I really, really enjoyed it. Again, the action with Green Arrow trying to solve the crime of whoever this Crimson Archer is, who's poisoning people with this super addictive, supercharged heroin-like drug. And then you have the context of Roy Harper, his longtime sidekick and somebody who's a surrogate son for him, having been attacked by Crimson Archer because of Roy's history as a drug user and what have you. And then you add in the fact that Roy's confronted with the mistakes of his past and reminded of the mistakes of his past while trying to also, recover from this overdose that the Crimson Archer exposed him to, while also having to deal with that in terms of the relationship with Leanne, his daughter. It's just a complex story. And the way that Christopher Condon is telling the story, it grounds these characters and it makes them feel very real and relatable in a way. Like, yeah, none of us are out there jumping off of rooftops, shooting arrows, just hitting the target, 99 times out of 100, like these heroic archers are. But you can certainly put yourself in their shoes in terms of, having weaknesses and failures and looking back on regrets and having to explain to your kids why you made a mistake and that, that sort of thing. So some people will be able to relate to it on the level of being a recovering addict and what have you. So again, there's just a lot of humanness to this story, a lot of human frailty that provides context and is what makes this book so great, because that's been there since the beginning of the Christopher Condon run. And it's just, again, part of why I'm so disappointed that it's ending. So anyway, I don't think you had this in your top 5, Rocky, but where'd you have it? Right.
It just was outside my top 5. I had it in at number 6. I don't. I've really been enjoying Green Arrow, but I will say that it's frustrating to me. Clearly, I mean, the sales were likely a little bit better when the whole Green Arrow family was there. It might be that the majority of new fans maybe want maybe you want a Green Arrow and the Green Arrow family, sort of like akin to the Batman family, and maybe that's what sells more comic books. I don't know, but I like this a little better. I will say, though, that I did feel that it probably suffered. I thought this did drag on at times. The first story arc I thought was maybe two issues longer than it needed to be. So I think, as much as I love the down to street level sort of grit, and I'm willing to pay the price. I'm willing to pay a little bit more for some decompression in these type of crime noir stories, especially when you got gorgeous Montos art and he can show off those character moments. But, the comic book market is fickle, and right now there's a lot of competition out there, and there's action scenes and action packed and everything. And this was a very Chris Condon, to his credit. I love how serious this topic is. Even this, I mean, drug addiction, drug use, the delicate relationship between Roy Harper and his daughter Leon, and we already know Leon already has a precarious relationship with her mother over in the pages of Cheetah and Cheshire. So I really like the interplay there, and I really wish this was continuing, because I'd really like to see Chris Condon sort of develop these core relationships moving forward. And I really was hoping that at some point we'd see Cheshire in here, but I guess that's not to be the case. But who knows? Maybe it'll rise from the ashes one day.
Yeah, or I mean, so it's ending with issue 31, which is, I was kind of doing the math when I was looking at this. I'm like, okay, so this is issue 28. So that means we have 3 issues left, right? We have 29, 30, and 31. This is Crimson Sands Part 4. So if you figure if this story arc is 6 issues like the first one was, then we've got issue 29 and 30 as the last 2 parts of the Crimson Sands, which would leave 31 like open. So is it just going to be like one of those issues where they do kind of almost a montage piece where maybe Green Arrow's traveling around or visiting people, or maybe they extend this arc. Again, I don't know. I didn't read the solicit for issue 31. But yeah, maybe we could have Cheshire show up. But I mean, you're right. Like, again, going back to the sort of the complexity and the realness that we're getting with these characters in the hands of Christopher Condon, having Roy and Cheshire's relationship explored to that kind of level of realism, well, I think would have been fantastic. I would have loved to see that as well. So anyway, next book is in both of our top 3. Green Lantern number 27, Starbreaker Supremacy Part 5 from writer Jeremy Adams. We have art from we have art from Xermenico, colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr., and letters by Dave Sharp. So I can kind of sum up how I felt about this issue. I mean, other than the fact that it's in my top 5, by saying that this was this was the 5th book I read, because I always just go, almost always just go in order that they're in our like press folder, basically, and this was number 5. So I just started at the top and started reading it, and when I got to it, as soon as I finished it, I was like, oh, hell no. I need to know how the Starbreaker Supremacy ends. I know it's going to end in the next issue of Green Lantern Corps. Do we have the next issue of Green Lantern Corps already available in our press folders for October? So I looked up the date it came out. I went to that folder. It was there. I read it. So I know how this ends. I just couldn't wait. I couldn't wait. I had other books I needed to read to talk about for this week, but with the way this issue went, I was like, I need to know. I cannot wait to see how this ends. So again, little privilege that we have the opportunity to do that, but I think it's a testament to how well paced this story has been and how interesting it has been and how compelling it has been. Xermenico art is awesome. I particularly want to call out the page where we get a scene of the Psi cells. And for those that aren't familiar, the Psi cells are it's basically the prison on Oa where villains are put in suspended animation. It's like this circular tube kind of that goes down on the ground, and where all the prisoners are held. So I just thought the layout, Rocky's got it on YouTube, although you can't see the full page spread. It doesn't really do it justice. but you get the sense of how it's laid out. And I just thought that was fantastic. The other part, and the thing that will have people talking in this particular issue, and again, huge spoilers here, everybody. Well, let me back up. So first of all, the reason that they're freeing all the prisoners from the psi cells is that we know at the end of last issue that Nathan Broom, formerly Carol Ferris's fiance, who was so distraught over her leaving him, literally at the altar, that he was so distraught, he was experiencing such painful sadness that the fractured spectrum of the emotional fabric of the DCU reached out to him, and he became the one and only Sorrow Lantern, right? And he was in so much pain that he wasn't, able to think straight, and through because of that pain and his access to the sorrow of the universe, he was actually a very powerful being, and he was manipulated by the Starbreaker to help the Starbreaker free, a lot of the Sun Eaters, and they shut off the emotions in the universe so they could be the most powerful beings in the DCU. That's sort of a real quick and dirty synopsis of what's been going on in Green Lantern. But we saw last issue that Nathan, once the emotions were shut off and he wasn't feeling that horrible sense of sadness, he was actually able to think straight and realize that he had made a mistake. And so he walked into the Sorrow Lantern, and in some way, we don't know exactly how, we may never know how, it might not matter, it might not be relevant to the story. He was able to shut that off, shut the Sorrow Lantern off, which then restored emotions back to the DC universe, which means all the Lanterns have access to their powers again, although on a lesser scale, because their batteries, the various power batteries for the various emotional spectrums, are still inactive. But the other emotional entities that the Lantern Corps had gone and rescued from beyond the Source Wall, in that battle, they all perished. The Starbreaker Corps was able to kill them, and so the Lanterns had no choice but to retreat. Right? They no longer had any abilities or rings to fight with, because again, their batteries are not charged. They can't charge their rings, so they fled. At the end of the last issue, the last issue of Green Lantern Corps, they fled. They fled to Oa. That's where they're headed. That's where the batteries are, even though they're not charged up and they're not able to charge their rings. They don't have anywhere else to go. With the Starbreaker Corps, these Sun Eaters in hot pursuit. So that's where this issue kicks off, right? So again, breakneck pace, tons of action, and they send a message to Oa saying, "Hey, we're coming, and the enemy is hot on our heels. Come up with a plan, do whatever you have to do. Hopefully you have an idea of how to stop these Starbreaker Corps, because we don't have any idea." In addition to that, if that wasn't enough, Jeremy Adams has also decided to tell us that the gauntlet that Kelly, the Teen Lantern, has been wearing all this time, the source of her powers, is actually Krona's gauntlet, which is huge to find that out, right? So it's corrupted. It's could possibly be manipulative and whatever. And we find out in this issue that Krona basically found some way to have his gauntlet out there for Kelly to find, and his plan was eventually to take over Kelly's body once he was there, manipulating her for long enough. So it basically reaches that point in this issue. But Elly is able to keep Kelly from succumbing to that. But then the gauntlet ends up in the hands of Simon Baz, and then Krona is basically able to use Simon's body as like a courier to go and create a clone body for himself, and he's going to live again. And if you're Krona and you're coming back in the present time, and you're going to be one of the most powerful Lanterns or whatever using this gauntlet, he decides he's going to clone the body of what he considers to be the greatest Green Lantern. So he's actually creating a clone of Hal Jordan. So he's going to have the body of Hal Jordan, but it's going to be Krona that's inside. And so that's all happening in the background. And when Kelly and Elly go to the other members of the Green Lantern Corps, specifically John Stewart, to say, "Hey, this horrible, terrible thing is happening. Krona's about to return. One of the most evil and possibly powerful beings in the DC universe is going to come back. We need to stop him." John Stewart's like, "We don't have any time for that." Like, they don't even get a chance to tell him about Krona, because they're worried about surviving the Sun Eaters, which are on their way to Oa to kill everybody. So again, like so much happening as it has been throughout this run for the Green Lantern Corps and Green Lantern. Jeremy Adams, along with Morgan Hampton, have just packed so much story into this event, into this crossover. It's just amazing. So with all that happening, John Stewart is faced with an incredible choice, and he basically sacrifices himself. He talks about how he was at the end of the Jeffrey Thorne run when he had all this ability and he was almost godlike and whatever. And what do they call him, like the constructor or something, the builder,
the architect, the
yeah,
architect.
I think the architect or the
Oh,
builder.
the builder, right?
He was, yeah. Um, and he had just leveled, like Jeffrey Thorne, obviously a huge John Stewart fanboy, had just leveled him up so much power. And so he says that he's going to do this thing, after he defeated Koyos, and he was the Emerald Knight, and he had this insurmountable amount of power, and it's taken all his will to keep that in check. And we've seen him do crazy stuff like merge the his old Green Lantern ring with that other ring that has to do with like the dark energy and what have you. We've just seen him do, and creating Elly, who's like he almost like he created life. Like he clearly is like so powerful with this ability that even though he gave it up, it's still there somewhere inside of him. And he uses his willpower, uses all his might, and it's a great double page spread where we see him gritting his teeth, and we see him tap into that inherent power that he has hidden inside him. And he reignites all the lanterns, not just the green, not just the blue, not just the yellow, like all of them. He sacrifices himself, pulls all that power out of himself, and uses it to reignite the batteries. So this was his plan all along, right? Release all the people that are in the psi cells, including, as we saw earlier in the Jeremy Adams run, a lot of the yellow lanterns, Atrocitus, and all the red lanterns. Because remember, the red lanterns, if they don't have a charge, they die if their rings aren't charged. And so when the Green Lantern Corps rescued the Red Lanterns, they told them, "Hey, we're going to put you in the psi cells, and we're going to put you in prison, basically." And Atrocitus was kind of pushing back against that, going, "We didn't come to you to be locked away and put in stasis." And like, well, we don't have another solution right now. Maybe you don't deserve to be locked up. Maybe you do, but it doesn't matter. You're going to die if we don't lock you up. So that was John's plan all along, right? Like he's going to sacrifice himself. He's going to reignite all of the batteries, and all these prisoners that he freed. He told them, he's like, "Look, I'm going to be straight up with you. There are Starbreaker Corps and these Sun Eaters are coming to Oa to kill us all. That includes all of you. All of you that are in suspended animation in these science cells will die as well. But maybe we'll have a chance if you fight alongside us. I'm asking you to trust us, at least for a little while." And so they do. So that's where they get the army from. So this issue basically ends with John Stewart reigniting all the lanterns and all of the people that were freed, whether they be the red lanterns, the indigo lanterns, yellow lanterns, blue lanterns, whatever. They all say their oath. It's another fantastic full page spread, basically, of them all reciting their oaths to charge up, basically, as the Starbreaker Corps is about to reach Oa. So, like, again, so much story packed into this. Amazing art. The color work by Romulo Fajardo Jr. is awesome. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how anybody reads this issue, and if they have access to the next part of the story, they don't go and read. Like, I just don't know how you would do that. Because I was like, man, if the next part of the story is here, it ends on such a cliffhanger. Like, this is the way to do it, right? Like, you've built up all this time, this war, this clash between the two, and they've had different battles. I mean, they had a battle in the world, Gem World, in Amifest, trying to get the nth metal. They've had all these pitched battles here and there with neither side being able to really declare victory. And now we're set up for the final battle. But the Starbreakers are going to be walking into a foe that's going to be more prepared and better able to fight back than they realize now that John Stewart has given the ultimate sacrifice. And I will say, and I almost gave it away here, but then I realized as I was flipping through right now that because that's the problem with reading ahead, right? We will find out some things about Jon Stewart toward the end that you might not necessarily expect. So, anyway, I thought this was fantastic. This was a no-brainer in my top 3. The art is amazing. The color work, again, amazing. So many awesome moments. Hal Jordan is my favorite Green Lantern. Jon Stewart, probably not even 2. He's probably further down the list. I think I like, even though he's underutilized. I think I like even Simon Baz better. And Kyle's my number 2. So I don't know. Jon Stewart maybe 4 or 5. I don't know. He's kind of down there, but I will say the moment that he had here was awesome. So I thought it was fantastic. Again, no brainer in my top 3. This was one of those books that as I'm reading it, I'm smiling, and this is what comics are all about, man. It was just great. So anyway, it was in your top as well, Rocky. Give us your thoughts on it.
Well, I don't have much to add. You pretty much said the whole story there, and just a couple of. It's all good. It's all good. You're excited. I don't want to interrupt the passion, my friend. No, this was great. Kyle Rayner was the torchbearer, right? Kyle Rayner had his moments saving the entire Green Lantern Corps, and played his role in the bringing back Oa and what have you. And now it's Jon Stewart's turn. I like that Geoffrey Thorne's run finally. I think I like how Jeremy Adams sort of incorporates that. And it is just Jeremy Adams on this, or is it also?
Yeah, just
Jeremy Adams. But just the way that it sort of takes Geoffrey Thorne's run, Geoffrey Thorne did a lot of great work propping up Jon Stewart. It was a little bit of a convoluted, a little bit of a more difficult read, Geoffrey Thorne's run, but he clearly had a love for Jon Stewart, and it really showed. And to have that power set that Jon Stewart left that series in, and to have all that power, and to see that come to fruition here in playing the ultimate sacrifice, the role, and literally bringing back and basically restoring the emotional spectrum against an enemy that, of course, wants to eat emotion. It just really worked well. I really love the fact, a couple of little tidbits. I love the fact that Elly herself gets a ring. I love the moment between Jon Stewart and Elly, where Jon Stewart basically admits something that even I as a reader always wondered. Jon Stewart admits, Elly, I don't really know if you're real or not. I don't exactly know how I created you, but basically I'm going to do whatever I can to hopefully you're still around. And the fact that Elly, this AI construct, gets a ring and somehow still remains powerful. I mean, that's very cool and interesting. Krona's glove. What exactly did Simon Baz do with Krona's glove there? He's in an unknown location, and somehow the glove comes off him, and I don't know what's being done with the glove. We don't know. We're gonna have to find out. I haven't read ahead like you. I don't know. I'm excited as hell, and this is a great comic, cliffhanger comic. It felt, I'm looking forward to DCKO in October, but in September here, it's been all Green Lantern first and foremost. Fantastic.
Yeah, it is interesting that there aren't really Green Lanterns in that DCKO event, and you kind of, I could see them not being because
there's Guy Gardner, but
yeah, but that isn't. I mean, guys,
it's Guy.
If there's, exactly. He's somebody who even though he obviously has access to a ring and very powerful weapon or what have you, he's never been one to me, he never has struck me as somebody with big imagination. And so, I mean, he has willpower, and he's somebody that I would want on my side during like a bar fight or whatever, right? Because he's never going to give up. But he's not necessarily one for thinking around corners, which was why it was so interesting when we found out that he had the Book of Oa and he was studying it, because it's just so a little bit antithetical to who we think of him as a character, at least for me. So that that was great character work as well. So really, really interesting, and I'm surprised that you didn't go and immediately read Green Lantern Corps as well. But anyway, pretty interesting. Did you say where you had it? Oh, you said it was in your top 5.
It's in my it's actually it's in my top 3. Yeah, for sure. Easily my top 3. Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on. Up next, we have Harley Quinn number 54 from writer Elliot Kalan, Carlos Oliveras on art, Marisa Louise on colors, Lucas Gattoni on letters. Um, the art by Carlos Oliveras I thought was really, really good. I didn't even realize that it wasn't Mindy Lee. His art style is so similar to Mindy Lee's, like especially the way he draws Harley, her eyes, her face, what have you. So in terms of like visual continuity, kudos to the art team because this will very much fit in with what Mindy Lee has been doing. In terms of the story, this is kicking off a new one, Friends with Detriments, it's called, which I love that name. The Zeus part one, the Zeus story.
Uh,
And this is fun, but it doesn't stand out. I don't know how memorable it will be. But if you've enjoyed what Elliot Kalan has been doing in this series so far, this is more of the same. It definitely has that same sort of zany feel without being completely over the top, where things get convoluted with multiversal travel like we've had recently with Harley and her feeling like she has superpowers or what have you. And the other thing that he continues is this concept that he's come up with Harley and her brain, her quintelligence, she calls it, where it's almost like a Jiminy Cricket like character, right? It's her brain. It's almost the cerebral aspect of herself that allowed her to, get her PhD in psychology or whatever, versus her sort of more crazy, wild, like literally clinically insane personality that tends towards chaos and maybe even evil at times. And so it's her like playing off herself. So like her different aspects of her personality. I like that because it gives a really interesting way for Elliot to give us a peek in and give context to the story of what Harley's thinking and feeling and what have you. Because the other aspect of this is the will they, won't they of the villainess that Kalan has put in this story for Harley to go up against, Aletha Clang, which is fun. So again, it's not in my top 5. But again, that's more to do with the strength of the books this week. Where did I have it? It actually came in at number 12 for me. So, yeah. But again, this is coming from somebody who's not a Harley Quinn fan. But this is probably my favorite run of Harley Quinn since probably the Jimmy and Amanda run, which kind of really helped put Harley on the map. So, anyway, what are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
Ilan, Elliot Kalan. It's growing on me. I see this run as potentially this could be a cult classic at some point because this Aletha Clang, I think, is going to, I think it's a character that might have a lot of legs. No pun intended. And by the way, I love this cover A. It's fantastic. It's so great to see a Harley Quinn with a fantastic cover A. You don't need to buy any of the variant covers, although there is, of course, usually the standard trope poses and what have you. But love the cover. I love Gun Bunny and, I don't know, was it Machine Hawk? What's her name? I know Gun Honey or whatever it is, but
Mayfly, Gun
Mayfly,
Bunny,
right?
and
And
Gun
Mayfly,
Bunny and Mayfly.
yeah, I like how Kalan makes them basically like best friends, almost over the top best friends. They're not they're not girlfriend. They're not a couple, but they're really, really besties. And I really like. There's a character called the Deconspirator in this comic. I actually enjoyed this comics, and the Deconspirator is a very interesting concept for a character. This Deconspirator, I'm not even sure if he's got a power, but he's got sort of like a power of persuasion, and he helps people he wants people to be free to disassociate their minds from being bombarded with all the conspiracy theories that are going around. And he thinks Aletha Clang and maybe Harley are part of the problem. And so how exactly, or he seems to cause some chaos and violence amongst people in what he says. I don't really get it, but it's interesting enough that I'm actually kind of intrigued. And then you throw in the quintelligence with Harley talking to her quintellect, trying to figure out where they're at, and all she can figure out is that she's been kidnapped, and she ends up obviously being in a motorhome being driven by Gun Bunny and Mayfly, and at the end we meet Gun Bunny's Gun Bunny's father, whose name is Brock Blomqvist Super Hunter. So
Yeah,
I don't more to come.
Clearly a ripoff from Craven, but I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm here for it. I'm
yeah,
so here. I'm so here for it.
yeah. No, but yeah, it's pretty good. It's growing on me. It's good comics.
Yeah, again, Elliot Kalan. For those who aren't aware, he was a writer on Daily Show with Jon Stewart for years. So he definitely has a good background in
Yeah.
terms of humor. So,
Mhm.
all right, up next we have Superman Unlimited #5, part 1 of 2, Man of Gold. Dan Slott is the writer, Rafael Alberquerque on art, Marcelo Maiello on colors, Dave Sharp on letters. Let's see, where did I have this ranked? This came in for me. Oh, this is in my top 3.
Oh, okay.
That's not right. I have to look. I see. I have
It's
I have a
number 8
duplicate.
for me.
Yeah. So, all right, well, go ahead and give us your thoughts on it while I fix whatever I have going on
Yeah.
here.
I actually didn't mind this. I actually didn't mind this. It would writer Dan Slott actually surprised me. I liked Albuquerque's art, and it's basically Lois Lane as head of the planet. They're having a meeting, and she wants to know what's the lowdown on the status of kryptonite in the world. And ultimately, they get the lowdown, and Superman wants to go to the island of kryptonite. I forget what is it called, El Cadero.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah,
Caldero. Yeah.
El Cadero, and it's really cool to see that he drives his I don't know what it's called, his supermobile or a Superman jet. The last time I saw this in comics, I think I have a cover from the early 1980s with Superman using this thing, and it just looks so absurd. It looks, I mean, a giant torpedo with an S on the front of it with two giant metallic fists coming out of both sides. It's so Silver Age, but I just love it. It looks awesome. And kudos to Albuquerque for drawing it so well. It just brought back good memories, big smile on my face. Thank you, Albuquerque. Um, and I was really surprised. I was really surprised to discover that apparently the leader of El Cadero, the person who was like the dictator, is actually welcoming Superman. They all welcome Superman, which is kind of interesting. Uh, Maybe I should have saw that coming, but I didn't. I just sort of assumed everybody who lives in a kryptonite island probably wouldn't like Superman. Well, I guess that was foolish of me. Why would they? This whole island's gotten rich. This whole island that's protected by the kryptonites and everything, and they've become rich in a matter of months. Oh, becoming many of them very wealthy billionaires, all because of kryptonite. And they basically owe that to Superman. Because of Superman's action in handling and preventing the kryptonite meteor from basically destroying the Earth, he slowed it down, allowing it to sort of crash land safely, and ultimately being utilized by the citizens of El Cadero, and at great cost to him, of course, but nonetheless. Superman is at this island, basically telling the leader of El Cadero, "Look, I want to. There's a crystalline alloy substance that's within one of your mining shafts. That it's the same thing that gives rise to that created my Fortress of Solitude, but it's very, very dangerous if it's in the wrong hands." I thought it was really stupid that Superman would just go ahead and tell the guy that, rather than just go into the mines and maybe try to find it. It's like telling a potential villain, by the way, there's a massive super weapon that you have on your home turf that I want to take from you. I mean, I thought that was just, Superman wasn't thinking on all cylinders, so to speak. But he's, Batman. He isn't. But that's just the way it is. I love the fact that Lois Lane goes undercover with him. They go into the mine shaft, and Superman has to sacrifice himself. Something goes awry, and the crystalline shard is found, and then the I'm forgetting his name, the El Cadero president. He actually he realizes that it is Superman's birthright because Jor-El and Laura, he sees them try to communicate with him, but he doesn't want. He clearly wants to utilize it for his own purposes. But Lois Lane sees what's happening, and she tries to film it, and he tries to stop her, and then he discovers that it's really Lois Lane, and I thought it was action packed. It was fun. I think I get a sense that Dan Slott's having a lot of fun. I really get it. I like the art by Alberquerque. It's very energetic. It's very bombastic. A lot's happening, and it feels like it's well paced. I like the pacing. I like the character work. I like how all the meeting all the workers at the Daily Planet are involved, and I just. It works for me, and it feels like it's going somewhere, and it's kind of a nice little side. I kind of like this idea of this kryptonite of the kryptonite shard of the shard and the crypt. I like interesting plot point. I don't recall it ever being done to quite that extent before, so I quite enjoyed this. It never made my top five because, but I did. It came in comfortably at number 8 for me, and I did enjoy it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it comes in at number 4 for me, so it wasn't actually in my top 3. President Castillo is his name. He's such an
Right.
interesting character. I mean, we've had hints from Dan Slott all along that we're going to get this new villain called the Kryptonite King. So obvious, or has seemed so obvious that it's going to be this President Castillo. So I was surprised along with you when, Superman arrives, they throw a parade. They're like, hey, here we are. And then we get the backstory of how they feel grateful that Superman saved their island while still leaving a big chunk of kryptonite there, which has enriched them. There's an island of great poverty before then. But Superman does owe them to some extent. But we really see the sort of the true colors of Castillo when he kills somebody to keep that shard. You wonder how much the kryptonite has possibly corrupted him, or because he was the one that rallied the other mine workers to save Superman, but then he's the one that is willing to kill in order to keep this Kryptonian shard. So you go from thinking, or at least I did, I went on this, Dan Slott took me on this emotional roller coaster of me thinking at some point this President Castillo is going to make a turn and just be outright evil, to thinking, oh, maybe not. Maybe he's not the one that turns into the Kryptonite King, because he's welcoming to Superman, and he seems to have this, great love of his island and his people and of Superman himself. He risked his life to save Superman when the, giant amount of kryptonite landed there. And then he swings me back the other way thinking, no, Caldero is, or Castillo rather, is so singularly focused. He has blinders on. He wants what's best for his people and his island and his country, to the point of willing to kill for it. He's fanatical. He's psychotic. But again, is it the kryptonite? Has kryptonite radiation affected his mind? Is he not thinking straight or whatever? So many complex ideas there. It was really interesting, which is why I put it up there. Plus, just the idea of Superman facing the overwhelming odds, and he never hesitates, right? Like, if you're a Superman and kryptonite is deadly to you, the last place on Earth you ever should possibly want to go is go to El Caldero. But he doesn't hesitate when he finds out that there's this crystal at the heart of this kryptonite mountain, which is similar to the one that helped create his Fortress of Solitude. He doesn't wait at all, that's where he needs to go, because it's a Kryptonian sun crystal, and it possesses a level of Kryptonian technology that in the wrong hands could be very dangerous. And Superman doesn't assume that it's going to be anybody in within the borders of El Caldero that's going to get this sun crystal, Kryptonian sun crystal, and use it for nefarious purposes. He's worried that one of his past foes, perhaps Brainiac, perhaps Lex Luthor, perhaps Darkseid, are going to get their hands on this and then use it for nefarious purposes. So I sort of agree with you, Rocky, that he goes in there and kind of shows that at times Superman, as you said, he's not Batman. He doesn't have that that like sort of natural distrust or paranoia that Batman does. In fact, he swings the other way where he inherently believes the goodness in people. And so why wouldn't he tell President Castillo all about this crystal and, how it can have all this Kryptonian technology, knowledge embedded within it or whatever. And so again, with Castillo being the kind of person who's so fanatical about wanting to promote his country and his people or whatever, this is just more technology that he wants to use to elevate them and in turn elevate himself, really. So it's, again, Castillo is just this really interesting character that Dan Slott has brought on the scene. Now, the only reason for me that Superman Unlimited is not like higher in considerations week in and week out, I just don't care for Rafael's Albuquerque's art on this book. To me, when you're talking about Superman, you're talking about superhero books, you want a really clean style, a really, more of kind of a defined line and a lighter line weight. Albuquerque's art is very textured in a lot of ways. That's why it works for things like horror so well, like American Vampire and what have you. And so for me, his art really shines in those type of places. Now, his storytelling is fantastic regardless, and the color work here is fantastic. So it's not that Albuquerque isn't doing a great job. He's conveying everything he needs to convey. The action is really over the top. The emotional moments and the visual story beats land very, very well. It's just, for me personally, why this doesn't rank even higher, being that Superman's my favorite character and I love the story that Dan Slott is doing, is just, again, it feels like a little bit of a mismatch between the art style and the character, right? So again, that's just my personal thing. I know there's other people that love Albuquerque's art on this and they're singing its praises or whatever, and rightly so if that tickles your fancy. But when I look at, like, we're going to talk about Superman 30 in a little bit, and Dan Mora does have a style that's very well suited for Superman because it's, for me, because it has those things that I'm just talking about. Very clean line work, not a lot of textures and stuff like that. So
yeah, I first became familiar with Albuquerque on American Vampire. He's got with Scott Snyder. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, his work there is just absolutely amazing. I don't want anybody to draw American Vampire other than Rafael Albuquerque, because he does such a fantastic job. So, all right, well, let's move on. Up next, we have New History of the DCU, issue number 3. Speaking of art, Mark Waid is the writer, Dan Jurgens and Doug Mahnke on pencils, and then we have Norm Ratman and Doug Mahnke handling the inks, with John Kalis and David Barron on colors. Todd Klein handles the letters. I know you didn't necessarily rank this because you kind of consider it outside of like normal, whatever, but I do. I throw it in there, and with that consideration, it comes in at number 10 for me. And again, it's I do enjoy this, and I'm glad it's being done, because there are some surprises with, like, so that is considered in continuity. Like, we see scenes from The Killing Joke here, which we kind of already knew that Killing Joke was considered continuity with Barbara in the wheelchair and what have you. But this, calling it out specifically. But for me, the art doesn't really land in this issue really, really well. And that's interesting, because I love Doug Mahnke and I love Dan Jurgens, but I don't know, for some reason the art in this it felt a little wonky for me, and I couldn't quite put my fingers on why that was the case. But that did probably drag it down for me a little bit. Just some of these montage pieces, it felt like, and again, this is purely my impression of it, it felt like the perspectives were off at times. Which, if it's a montage, not everybody's going to be in proportion to one another, but it's just, I don't know. There were a few moments, there were a few pages where I specifically noticed the art. It pulled me out of the, I don't want to say story, because it's not necessarily a story, but pulled me out of the narrative, we'll say, because this is, being narrated by Barry Allen. This is him, recounting the history of the DCU. But there are times when I literally stopped reading just to look at the art, because I was like, it just doesn't quite look right for me. So, but anyway, it's a minor nitpick. I've been enjoying this for the most part. And I think this is a valuable resource if you want to know, what counts and what doesn't. Not that it really matters, because your favorite stories are your favorite stories, whether they're technically in continuity or not. Um, but I know a lot of DC fans like myself are such huge continuity nerds that that's why I enjoyed this so much. Just like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened. Oh yeah, and the resource in the back with all the footnotes where you can go and read the actual issues of the events that are being described by Barry Allen is awesome as well. So,
Yeah.
anything to add for this, Rocky?
Yeah, I will just add that I really enjoyed it because it amazes me. I find it particularly enjoyable only because I've been reading comics. When you've been reading comics for 50 years, like I have, I straight up sometimes mix up. Sometimes I say, wait a minute, did Zero Hour come before Final Night, or did Final Night come? It's like after a while, I mean, the biggest mistake you can assume when you encounter an older reader like myself and like yourself is to assume that I remember things correctly. I don't. I remember things out of order more than a few times, and I just get things just plain wrong. And I always tell people, look, if you just read original Crisis of Infinite Earths last week, well, I'm sorry, but I read it 10 years ago, so you probably know the story better than I do, because probably forgot major plot points. I mean, some of the big ones. Anyways, it's nice to get a memory refresh like this, and especially to see how it all fits into the big picture like that. And it's also kudos to Mark Waid, who, because that's working overtime. Yeah, it's nice to see all the collages and stuff. I can nitpick on the art, but I mean, it is what it is. I still love my original 2-volume History of the DC Universe back in 1986. I remember that 2-volume set. That'll always hold a very special place in my heart. But I look forward to the hardcover of this, the inevitable hardcover. I'll definitely be getting that.
Yeah, I'm actually really good at remembering the order of the events for
Oh, good.
DC.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, yeah, I really am, and I don't know why that necessarily is. I guess it just feels like it rolls in, a little bit better. Like, I know it's, Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then Legends, and then Millennium, um, and then after Millennium, I think Invasion came next.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, and then we had 0 Hour, because enough time had gone on 0 Hours in
Yeah.
'95, because enough time
Yeah.
had gone by that they were like, yeah, we could start fixing stuff or whatever, because
Yeah.
it's kind of easier to remember, and you could consider Death of Superman or whatever. But the part of the way I keep it straight, because I think 0 Hour and Final Night are the two that people mix up the most. But if you think
Yeah.
the way you keep it straight is, so 0 Hour has Superman in it, and Superman hadn't died yet. But then if you look at Final Night, the way Final Night it ends, that's the redemption of Hal Jordan, where he goes and reignites the sun.
Mm.
So if 0 Hour has Superman, he hasn't died yet. Hal Jordan becoming Parallax ties into
Has to come.
Superman's
Yeah.
death, right? Because
Yeah.
he died, and that's when Mongol came and destroyed Coast City or whatever. So Green Lantern Hal Jordan is not Parallax yet when 0 Hour happens, and he's Parallax in Final Night. So that's how I keep it. That's how I keep it
Yeah.
straight. So, and then he becomes a Spectre, and blah blah blah, on and on and on. So anyway, yeah, if you're curious, this is the time to jump on, read that new History of the DCU, and you'll have it all straight in no time. All right, up next, DC versus Vampires World War V, issue number 12. Now, this is one of those series that, just as much as I enjoy it, man, Rocky really digs it. And this is never close to my top 5. I think maybe one issue of it, the first issue, I think, landed for me. But then after, and part of it has to do with the art. I'm actually a fan of Otto Schmidt. I love the work that he did on Green Arrow when Ben Percy was writing it. But his art here is so much more textured and visceral, and it should be, because it's end of the world time and vampires and everything. But again, it's not the clean style of art that I normally prefer. So I think that diminishes this book for me. I just don't enjoy it as much, because I'm not as much of a fan of Otto Schmidt's art here as I have been other times in the past. But Matthew Rosenberg has kept the pacing going pretty quickly. We have Perlugi Casolino handling the colors in this issue, Tom Napolitano on the letters. And there is a backup that I enjoyed much more called Heartland, by Andrew Klein as the writer, with French Carlo Magno handling the art and colors, and then Tom Napolitano on letters. So this is the final issue. and I didn't rank this. This comes in at number 14 for me. Um, I just this felt so anticlimactic. Like it did have its cool moments, and when Darkseid is defeated in the way that we expected him to be defeated, and I give all the kudos in the world to Rocky for basically calling this, because I was like, no, the Miracle Baby
Yeah.
died because we saw the Miracle Baby die, crushed in the fist of Darkseid, and but at the same time, it almost feels a little bit like Ex Deus Machina, right? Like a little bit. And in case we use that term Ex Deus Machina a lot, and people, I realize that it's a Latin term, and people may not know what it means, and it means of God the machine, right? Like
Yeah. God in the Machine, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like Deus being God and Machina being machine. So when you talk about that, like, well, what does that actually mean? That means that basically you pull God out of a machine. You're pulling God out of the machinations of the story. So what it means in this context is, okay, as a writer, I've painted myself into a corner, and I don't really have any way to resolve this, but I'll just pull out this fantastical, event, or this fantastical plot point or story point that will fix everything, right? Like it's like a magic can fix anything. Like I did this thing where things don't work right. Kind of like the way people use time travel at times. Like, well, I don't know how to fix this plot hole or whatever. I'll just time travel. So again, we at no point were we shown any type of way for this Miracle Baby to have survived, but yet we find out the Miracle Baby survived. And it's cool the way Matthew Rosenberg does it. It's a cool moment when she defeats Darkseid the way that she does, and we get cool visuals or whatever. But it just felt a little bit like a cheat and a little anticlimactic that everything has been building up to this, and then on top, and so okay, whatever, I'll buy that. It happens. But then the way that the heroes defeat the vampires was the same thing, and it was a situation where Supergirl does something, and I'm like, why the fuck didn't they do this way back when, before all the goddamn heroes got killed and turned into vampires? If this could have been done then, why the fuck did you wait till the 12th issue when practically everybody's dead and all the humans have been like? I was like, really, really? That's what I had. That's why I ranked it so low. Like, again, I don't want to miss the forest for the trees. The journey has been cool. It's had a lot of cool moments and whatever. But yeah, with the art that we got, with just not my favorite style of Otto Schmidt art, and then the resolutions to these two different storylines, the fight with the vampires, the fight with Darkseid, to have them end that way, it just felt like, really? Why? And sometimes you get frustrated. You watch it and you're like, well, if that was the answer and you knew, why didn't you do it 4 issues ago? And I get it, right? Then we wouldn't have had all these cool issues and cool moments or whatever. I mean, even when the Miracle Baby shows back up, not a baby anymore, and Darkseid's like, "Who are you?" Like, there's a lot of really, really cool moments, and we would have missed out on those cool moments if people had just done the things that they did in this issue way back when. So I get it, but I still have to call it out for that. That's why it ranks so low for me, especially like the Darkseid moment. Okay, we had no hints or clues as readers that the Miracle Baby had survived, or that Damian had survived for that matter. I'm okay with that. More so than what Supergirl does, because it just, I mean, I think we even called it out previously. Like, why don't they just clean up the atmosphere and bring the sun back or whatever? Like, we had said that previously, and for some reason they could never do it, and then all of a sudden they can. Like, it frustrated me. But the backup story with the haunted tank, Jeb Stewart, whatever, I love that one. That one got me in the feels. I enjoyed that one a lot more. So anyway, that's the reason I put it down so low. It just bugged me a little bit. So anyway, what were your thoughts on it, Rocky?
I wish this would be a little longer. I wish this was a double-size issue, and I wish we would have eliminated the haunted tank story and had more pages of this final battle, because I just thought it was cool. I like that. I was surprised. we joked about, is Damien really dead? And yeah, I
Yeah.
did. I did sort of call it with the child, the chosen child,
Yeah,
Avia.
you called it for
The
Damien and the baby. You called it for
Yeah,
both.
well, it just seems a little bit too convenient. And in any event, it's nice to see it sort of come to fruition. You say it's maybe it's a little Duke Ex Machina. It was set up, so there was story there. So I'm cutting it some slack only because I had so much fun with it. I think there's so many unexplored characters here. What I find odd about this series is that I've been enjoying it so much, and a lot of the backups explore other characters too. This is an Elseworlds tale. Obviously, it takes place elsewhere in the DC multiverse, so it's possible we could certainly get future stories of DCV vampires in the future. We'll have to wait and see. I. I just thought the battle seek, I like Otto Schmidt's art. It's very unique to this series. It could have been. I love the fact that I love that the House of Mystery is involved. This is so cool with John Constantine and the Spectre, plucking Avia out, and then because time works differently in the House of Mystery, they end up, Alfred really didn't kill Damien. Damien was sort of sent to the House of Mystery. He's dead, but he's not really dead, and so he's training Avia for 20 years, and then Avia returns again because time passes differently in the House of Mystery, and she returns just in the nick of time to decapitate Darkseid. I mean, I don't know. It's pretty cool stuff. We haven't seen Darkseid has been kicking ass. His mere presence has been kicking ass in the DC universe. So it's kind of nice to see in the DC vampire universe that Darkseid gets his head chopped off. And I'm a big Highlander fan, and I like that sort of thing. And it's a lot of fun. If again, you don't have to necessarily overthink this. Uh, you've said a lot of constructive criticisms that I'll grant you a pile of them. I just really enjoyed this because it's one of those things where it's funny when you talk about remembering things. For some reason, I usually always remember the previous issue of this series that I read, and I haven't loved everything that Matthew Rosenberg has done for DC, but I've really enjoyed this series, and so for me, this is a must buy for me. I quite enjoyed it, and thank you to the whole creative team, Rosenberg, Schmidt, and Casalino. Good stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Uh, I wonder. I mean, it started off hugely successful when James Tynion launched it, and then Matthew Rosenberg came on board as Tynion was transitioning away from DC to do more creator-owned stuff. But I feel like the hype of it and kind of the reception of it has dwindled over time. Like I don't hear as many people talking about it, so I don't actually know in terms of sales. Like if I just look at context, apparently it's outselling Flash and Green Arrow and even Green Lantern. So maybe it's still selling pretty well. But I wonder, I bring that up only to wonder if we've seen the last of it. If it's still selling really well, I imagine we're going to get more DC vampires versus vampires. Except I guess you can go back and tell stories in between, but we did get a resolution. I mean, the vampires did die because Supergirl somehow dragged the Earth. Which the other part I didn't even mention either, if we really want to talk about it, like the Earth is in such a delicate balance between just close enough to the sun that we stay warm and not,
Yeah.
too close that we burn up.
Don't overthink it.
If we're moving it around, like, yeah, I'm right. Let's move on. I'm overthinking it again. I'm overthinking it. It's comics. It can't make sense. Superman or Batman jumps from the moon. It can't make sense. So anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about something a lot more fun in my mind. Superman number 30, Legion of Darkseid, Part 3, The Great Collision, written by Joshua Williamson, art by Dan Mora, colors by Alejandro Sanchez, letters by Ariana Mayer. Definitely in my top 3, and I believe it's probably in your top 3. I know it's in your top 5.
It is, yeah. My top 3 for sure. Yeah.
3. Yeah. And I'm going to let you go first because I got so excited about Green Lantern. I'll get super excited about this one as well because I was just like when I was reading Green Lantern, I was smiling the whole time. I was smiling the whole time when I was reading this, but also I got to give you a shout out because I think you called it. There were definitely somebody in the comments that called it with what happened here. So, but you called it as well. So I'm gonna let you take it away. Give you your props because I didn't call. I mean, when you said it, I was like, oh yeah, I hope that's the case. But I didn't call it. I was too annoyed with Joshua Williamson possibly undoing the redemption. So I'll let you go first.
Yeah, well, that was the big question. I mean, last issue we had a betrayal of Superboy-Prime, where he sort of betrays Superman and Booster Gold, and that was like, oh my God, it's Superboy-Prime is returning to his evil self. The redemption was a giant misdirection. All that work that Jeff Johns did in DC in Batman, I guess Metal or whatever. I mean, I guess it was all for naught. But in any event, in this issue, we get some much needed. We get the origin story of the Dark Legion, and that's what I particularly love about it. And we get it through the mind of Saturn Girl, and it's. I think it's really cool. I mean, basically, Darkseid originates sort of in the 31st century. He utilizes his essence, Darkseid's essence, slowly speaks to the Legion, and he takes over, and he doesn't so much mind control, but he manipulates and utilizes his force or perhaps some version of the anti-life equation, and sort of influences the minds of the Legion in the future, and eventually, of course, they make their way backwards through time, and they're killing all the heroes moving backward in time. And they're utilizing Booster Gold to do it. Because when Booster Gold came into the future, Booster Gold was infused with chronal energy as well as omega energy. The chronal energy allows the Dark Legion to travel backwards through time to kill different iterations of the Legion of superheroes and backwards in different time periods. And the omega energy is something that Darkseid needs to access, but in order to do that, they're going to have to kill Booster Gold. Now, this starts off, I mean, I love the fact that Superboy-Prime, I mean, oh my God, Dan Morris art is absolutely fantastic. There are scenes here that just look epic, and Superboy-Prime is so perfectly characterized here. I mean, he's having a blast. He's evil, he's fun, he's crazy, and even Saturn Girl says she talks about, you know, she can read Prime's mind, and she admits that Prime's mind is all over the place. He's evil and everything else. And so you're thinking, my God, if Saturn Girl is reading Prime's mind and he's evil, then, oh my God, Superboy-Prime must really be gone. He's not going to be coming back to the side of the angels anytime soon. But that wasn't the case, you know. Superboy-Prime, he's got his attitude. One of my favorite lines is when he says to the Lightning Lad, he says, "How about I rip your arm off and beat you to death with it? It's kind of my thing."
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know anything about Infinite Crisis, Superboy-Prime, that's what he ripped a lot of limbs off. He decapitated characters. He ripped limbs off. I remember. I think he decapitated. Was it? He ripped the arm off Damage, and he decapitated. Was it Panther? What was the name of that? Anyways, it was more than a few. In any event, it doesn't really matter. Superboy-Prime betrays the Dark Legion, and of course, Saturn Girl is absolutely shocked. The reason why Superboy-Prime was able to hide his thoughts is, as he said, you know, Superman can't hide the fact that he's good. His mind is riddled with compassion and goodness, as Superboy-Prime would say. But Superboy-Prime he genuinely does hate the Legion, and he hates Superboy-Prime. His mind is chaos, and so it's almost impossible to read. I don't know if I buy that explanation really, but one thing about Superboy-Prime, we always got to keep in mind. Yeah, exactly. Don't overthink it, but also keep in mind that he's Superboy-Prime. He's Superboy-Prime, and so because he's Superboy-Prime, he's a little bit of a multiversal wild card. He's even more of a wild card in my mind than Power Girl or Huntress, or he's a wild card. And in any event, the fact that him and Superman then, you know, he rescues Booster Gold. Superboy-Prime rescues Booster Gold, throws him into the time portal to throw him back into the past, and then punches Superman back into the past. But before that happens, Superman gives Superboy-Prime a Legion flight ring, his own Legion flight ring that he had as a boy. I just thought that was so cool. And I'd be lax if I didn't say the other fantastic line in this comic was when you think Superboy Prime is about to kill Booster Gold, and he says, Dan Jurgens is going to kill me. He makes reference to Dan Jurgens, who, for those you don't know, Dan Jurgens is the creator of Booster Gold. And so it's once again Superboy Prime, speaking out, breaking the fourth wall again. It was, anyways, it's so much fun. And, the way that Dan Mora has Superboy Prime at more than one scene where he's sort of looking back, it's like he's looking at us, the reader. And as he looks back, he's looking at us, the reader, but he's also looking at Superman, and he says, "Get out of here! Basically, you still owe me a team up." And it's just cool. This is fun. This is Silver Age fun with a little bit of with the modern era sensibility. And it works so well. And for some reason, even though Superboy Prime is off his rocker and psychotic, I thought it was a touching moment in a crazy psychotic way where Superman gives him a Legion flight ring. I thought that was cool. And then for Superboy Prime to join the fight with the other beaten up Legionnaires that have barely survived, saying "Long live the Legion," and it fades to white. And the white color, the fade to white, being emblematic of the color of the original Crisis, of swallow, almost, fighting into the void. I just thought was quite powerful. And with Superman arriving with Booster Gold in the present, basically warning everybody, get everyone to the Watchtower now, because they got to prepare for a battle with Darkseid, and these are the events that lead into DCKO. So, but I loved it. There's more I could say, but I'll share some of the joy. I'll allow you to share your joy. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, what a great job by Joshua Williamson. I mean, obviously, I've talked, before about my love of Superboy Prime and the original, when he was just Superboy. We talked about how he's supposedly from our Earth, where comics are not a real thing, and there are no superpowers. And then in Crisis, he shows up, and he's so innocent, and he's so naive, and he goes. I mean, in a way, it's like something I hold against Jeff Johns, him turning him so completely, absolutely evil, to where it doesn't even seem like it's the same character. But then also Jeff being the one that redeemed him, and in that moment in Dark Knight Death Metal, in that one shot, in my mind, where he's left there, it's like, okay, has he really been turned back into the Superboy Prime that I loved, right? And the argument could be made, well, too much has happened. Some people felt he couldn't be redeemed. He killed too many people. There's too many bad things that have happened in between, or whatever. But I couldn't help but want him to go back and almost have all those events erased. But he still did them. He's still capable of them, and what have you. And that's what I love about what Josh Williamson has done here, right? Like, yes, he's redeemed, but much like, in a way, you can almost compare him to Jason Todd, to Red Hood, right? Like, and I talked a lot about why I felt like the first issue of that Red Hood series that unfortunately got canceled works so well, because it's fleshing out the character where he goes beyond just, okay, Red Hood is just the Robin that died and he's carried around all this trauma. We want more than that, right? And that's what Williamson has shown here with Superboy Prime. Like, yeah, I don't get my wish of being able to turn back the clock to where he's like this completely innocent, almost Silver Age version of Superboy Prime, because again, too much has happened in the meantime. He's been through too much crap. He's ripped off too many arms and beat people to death with them. The trauma is still there. He's still carrying it around, right? And so he has an edge to him, an edge that I wouldn't necessarily want to be there. But again, I can't go back and erase all the stories. I can't go back and erase Infinite Crisis where it hasn't happened. But the core of that innocence is still there, and you see it. And I did buy the explanation of why, he sets it up, because that's the other thing about Superboy Prime. Like, so many times people have complained about him as a character. Like, he gets so in his own head, and he's so egomaniacal at times that he does stupid things and he makes stupid decisions, and he can't think ahead. He can't plan, because he's so filled with, in his words, his nerd rage, right? He can't see, he feels wronged. He feels that he deserves better. And he's so self-centered and narcissistic, and it prevents him from seeming to be intelligent. And as we said earlier, Superman is no Batman at times, but he's a good enough tactician that he can sometimes outthink his opponents. And so it was great the way Williamson set it up. He Superboy-Prime, and you get the sense that he says it sort of offhand in a way that it doesn't arouse suspicions, because he asks Saturn Girl, can you read my mind? And she's like, oh yeah, I like what I see in there. It's so chaotic or whatever, so evil. But he sets it up in such a way that he knows that his double cross is not going to be foreseen by this evil version of Saturn Girl, by Imra, which is great that he asked. And then again, I bought his explanation. He's like, hey, yeah, you can read my mind because my hatred for the Legion is pure. Like, I do hate them. But then at the end, we see him ready to fight alongside them, because his sense of heroism that's been restored and his sense of doing what's right, and his inspiration from Superman. He says to the Legion, we all were inspired by Superman. That outweighs his dislike of the Legion, and he's ready to fight till the end of time. He gets almost another redemptive moment here at the end. And that's, again, what I love about what Joshua Williamson has done here, because he hasn't thrown away all the bad stuff that Superboy-Prime has done. He hasn't gotten rid of that edge. This isn't somebody who is pure and completely, heroic and doesn't have flaws. And he has all that stuff. And that almost makes it more powerful that he does what he does when he tells Superman, you got to go back. You got to tell the time trapper what you need to tell him. You got to tell the rest of the heroes what needs to be done. Because remember, the time trapper sent me here because I could do what you could never do, which is I could fool the Legion into knowing, or this evil Legion, this dark side Legion, into thinking that I had joined their team. And as much as Superman wants to stay there and help, Superboy-Prime knows that he's needed to go be in the tournament, because Superboy-Prime has seen, because Time Trapper has shown him what the possible future holds. And his last bit of advice to Superman, because Superboy-Prime knows what it's going to take to wield the Heart of Apocalypse. He says, don't hold back, right? Don't hold back. You have to go and win the tournament. You can't hold back. You're maybe the only one, if you have the Heart of Apocalypse that can defeat Darkseid. Because you think about it, like, Superboy-Prime has a power level that at times we've been told he's even more powerful than the main universe Superman. It seems like he would have been the perfect one to wield the Heart of Apocalypse. So interesting way for the DC creators here to take him off the board, and we have him sort of fighting, as you said, into oblivion alongside the Legion. So many great moments. You mentioned it. Dan Jurgens is going to be pissed, or telling the Legion that he had a Superman team up moment. Now he's getting his Legion team up moment. He tells Superman, "You're the coolest hero ever. Batman could suck eggs." Just so many fantastic moments.
Yeah.
Maybe my favorite though might be when he tosses Booster through the portal so he can get back to present time, and he says, "Tell Blue Beetle I said blah." I thought that was fantastic as well. So, I mean, what just a comic that had just moment after moment after moment that I loved, moving the story forward, giving us incredible moments like this. If you're a longtime DC fan like you and I are, there's so many little Easter eggs here and so many callbacks that I almost feel like I'm being rewarded for being a fan, for showing up for all those moments. Like, if you're a new to DC, and you've started reading DC in the last year or whatever, you probably won't get that "Tell Blue Beetle I said bwahaha."
Yeah.
You might not get that. You might not get the context of, well, why is he saying Dan Jurgens is going to be pissed? How does he even know who Dan Jurgens is? Well, because he comes from a world where DC comics are a thing, so he knows who all the creators are. Like, there's so many moments. Like, so I felt so rewarded as a longtime DC fan reading this issue, that all these little Easter eggs were called out. And on top of all this, when you add in the Dan Mora art, because there are a ton of characters and there's so much happening in this, and he hits every moment, every beat, because some of the beats are a little more emotional, some of them are a little more humorous. It's all action, and I just thought it was incredible. Like, yeah, like again, when I finished reading it, I couldn't stop smiling. I was like, wow, that was amazing. Um, Again, I'm glad that we didn't get rid of the redemptive arc that Superboy-Prime went on, and in a way, it almost got solidified in a way, but not like maybe he didn't get redeemed as much as I necessarily would have wanted him to. It seems like Williamson pulled back on it a little bit, but I'm okay with that because the redemption that he does have is that much more grounded and that much more established now. And I can't wait to see when he shows up next. Like I just love him as a character. He's just fantastic. So, all right. Up next, we have The Flash, number 25, Redemption in a Whole Different Way. This is written by Simon Spurrier, art by Vasco Gregev, colors by Matt Herms, letters by Hassan Otsman Elhau. To probably nobody's surprise, this comes in at number 15 for me. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, kudos to Simon Spurrier. I mean, 25 issues on The Flash is, nothing to sneeze at. I don't necessarily think that his cosmic horror take on The Flash was necessarily successful, but he did do some interesting things. And at the end here with issue 25, he does try to tug on those heartstrings to some extent. I think it might work for some people. It didn't work for me because it felt so over the top. And it didn't necessarily feel earned with the story that we got. We still get enough gobbledygook, scientific wise, that it kind of reminds me of how meandering and how so many times this arc and this run didn't really work for me. So because of that, because of what came before, with it not working, with sort of the family feel and what have you, that's why these moments in here felt hollow. On top of which, much like DC versus Vampires for me, the resolution ended up being a little like, let's wave the magic wand because I don't know how to fix this. So we're basically told that Sparky ate Barry's flash ring and he hasn't pooped. Like literally it says he hasn't pooped. Like why we're reading the thoughts of Sparky, Jay still seems to have this connection with him. He's like, yeah, he's inside Eclipso, and part of one of the things he's thinking about, other than missing us and thinking about love and family, is the fact that he can't poop. Why does that matter? Well, because he ate the flash ring, and the flash ring is basically blocking his digestive system, so he can't poop. Like that's actually a story point. And because they realize that, okay, he must have, if he can't poop, he must have something blocking his digestive system. They theorize it's the flash ring. Jay reaches out, realizes it's a flash ring because Barry wore the flash ring for so long. The flash ring itself has residual speed force energy, which allows them to then teleport inside Eclipso's belly, rescue Sparky, explode Eclipso, and save the day. And if that doesn't sound like wave my magic wand to solve the problem, then I don't know what does. So because of that sort of really honestly kind of silly resolution to, I mean, millions of shards of the Flash died on the moon in this war, and this is how we solve it because a dog can't poop. It didn't land for me. And like I said, the emotional moments, they just didn't feel earned, because this entire issue is narrated by Linda Park West. She's basically having dinner with Wally while thinking about the story that she's writing, and we're not told is it a news story. I mean, we know when we first meet her, she's like a news reporter, like for television, but then she's written books, and like we're not even sure, and I guess it doesn't matter how or why she's writing the story, who she's writing it for, where it's going to be published, or whatever. It's just a way to frame it, to give her a chance to give her perspective and her kind of emotions on the page, and as well as explore the relationship between Wally and his kids or whatever. And there are a couple moments that really work with Jay and Irie, with Wally sort of checking in on them and them not knowing that he's checking in on them. So that was probably my favorite moment of the issue. But again, like so many emotional moments in this issue that would have landed had they felt earned. But it's almost like Si Spurrier is telling me I'm supposed to care about these relationships and these emotional moments, rather than at any point during his run giving me a reason to care. Like the family feel of this book that was there when Jeremy Adams was writing it, where it was full of hopefulness and full of sort of family moments and emotions that were built into the story all along with the Si Spurrier run. The emotional moments are there because I'm told that I'm supposed to care rather than shown. So for me, that ultimately is kind of the failure of this title. And I'm really going to be interested to see what Mark Waid and Christopher Cantwell bring to the series, if any of that is going to exist at all, or if their run is going to be more, hey, we just have to focus on the DCKO stuff and what's going on with Impulse and what have you. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited to see what the next era of the Flash brings, because this era just didn't work for me. So anyway, Rocky, I imagine you had this ranked last as well. If I
yeah, dead last. Yeah, dead last. And you know, the final well, actually, the final 3 pages basically say it all. You know, Wally West. We think it's the Wally West. There was like a billion of them in this series, and I don't know how we were supposed to get any character moments with Wally West. He never sounded like Wally West, and I wasn't sure which Wally West was talking because there was a billion of them. And his Jay and Irie witnessed their dad, multiple versions of their dad, get massacred and killed numerous times over. They apparently experienced no trauma from that. So this is being a family comic. Just and then trying to make sense of the plot. I mean, good luck with that. But you know, apparently at the end, finally, Wally and Linda are having dinner, and then Linda says to Wally, "Say, honey, don't you think this stuff's a little out there for your readers?" and Wally actually says, "Temporal distortion, gods disguised as dogs, the illusion of individuality, etc., etc. Are you really expecting them to get it?" I mean, that's the dialogue, and so. I think it's very obvious that Si Spurrier knows very well that readers don't understand his storyline. He knows full well that frankly this was, in my view, a failure of a run. And I think that's his way of acknowledging that, yeah, I don't expect readers to get it. Or maybe it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I don't get it. I would like to know which part of this has to do with the illusion of individuality. Is that when there was like a billion Wally Wesses? What was the point of that? The temporal dilation, the gods disguised as dogs. Even that, the Speed Force gave birth to an entity that occupied a dog. The dog eats a flash ring, can't poop it out, and so this is the story, I guess. So I don't know what are future writers supposed to take from this to do anything with. I'm just astonished by this. I really am. And I mean, it's funny. It is funny, but for all the wrong reasons. I'm laughing at this series for all the wrong reasons. And I tell you, like, but in any event, this is not for me. I'm glad it's over. Si Spurrier, I love your John Constantine. And there's another comics. There's another independent title of yours that I'm picking up because I know this Flash, though, this Flash is not for me, but we'll see what Mark Waid has to do next month.
Yeah, now that you mentioned, so you know, remember the couple first issues where Mike Deodato was on the art, and I even as much as I love Mike Deodato, I never cared for the style of art that he was using. I felt it was overly complicated. The Voice Said Kill, I think, is the Si Spurrier book that you're thinking about, right?
Right.
Yeah, Image Comics. Yeah,
I'm going to pick that up.
But anyway, I mentioned it. So I did buy the first couple issues of this, you know, hoping that I would like it, and then that obviously didn't turn out to be the case. But I bring it up to say, I mean, you bought the first couple of issues of this.
I bought right up to. I read the first arc. I got the first 13 issues, and then I stopped at the 13th issue. So I read the first arc, and I was out.
Well, we continued reading it, just our press previews.
Well, we read it, we review it, so yeah.
But yeah, that was what I was wondering. was
I thought that,
how long you kept
yeah,
buying the
up to issue
rig.
13, because I was hoping he would nail the landing, and then issue
God,
14, I
so
thought it
you
had
stuck
hope.
with it. Yeah, you stuck with it like way longer than I did. I think I only bought like
Yeah.
the first 2 or 3 issues because I was just like,
Mm.
no,
Well, do
this
you know
is not
why?
good.
It was because of his John Constantine run, right? Because I thought he had a lot of
Okay.
good insights in John Constantine, and there was some of those John Constantine issues. You helped me understand some of the issues. I
Yeah,
missed some parts, and I was giving him the benefit of the doubt thing, because sometimes I have to reread things, and sometimes it takes a while to sink in, but it never did. So, and after 13 issues, I said enough is enough.
yeah. That's perfectly reasonable, perfectly fair. But the reason I bring it up is because you mentioned him saying, through Linda saying, "Are any of your readers going to get this?" And him saying, no, probably not. And how much was he aware? That's what I wonder. Like, how much is he aware that, like, critically and um, in terms of kind of the rankings that this thing had, that people were just
Yeah.
not getting it. So
Yeah.
I was kind of
Okay,
so
get it
just
all.
in this very small sample size, I stuck around. I think I bought the first 3 issues. You lasted until issue 13 or 14. But yeah, I can't imagine the sales on this thing were very high. But anyway, all right. Up next, we have Mr. Terrific Year One, number 5. Al Letson handles the script. Valentin Delandro on art for the majority of it. Edwin Galmon handles the first 3 pages of art. Marisa Louise colors those Valentin Delandro pages, and then Lucas Gattoni on letters. So I've really been enjoying this series. That being said, this one just misses my top 5 at number 6, but that's more to do with the strength of the other titles. It's not like this thing has fallen off at all. And I particularly enjoyed in this issue, we have Black Lightning, Jefferson Pierce, showing up to talk to Michael Holt. And I like that interaction. I guess I didn't put 2 and 2 together that they knew each other. I'm sure it's been explored before, and I probably had just forgotten. But I really like that interaction. So this continues to be really, really good, and I'm excited to see what the final issue brings. So, where did you have this ranked, Rocky?
For me, it came in at number 10 for me, but I actually enjoyed this. I thought, I wonder though, I think a lot of people who are just picking this up might be completely lost in the first 3 pages when they, all of a sudden, when they discover that, do they know, we're introduced to it's a reference to Flash issue 799. Jeremy Adams' written issue where basically it's revealed that Mr. Terrific has a kid, and I can't even remember what his kid's name is, but he's got, is his kid called Fair Play 2 or Fair Kid or Fair Boy? I don't know. But in any event, I thought that was, I think, why would they show his kid at the beginning of this issue? I think it's because he might end up in issue 6, because this issue has Aletha, what's the name of the villain again? Aletha Prescott, and she last issue she basically tried to, she got caught in an explosion because she's utilizing technology that Mr. Terrific's wife created in order to take over the utilities of the city. And of course, Mr. Terrific wants to prevent that from happening. And he's even gone so far as to ask Bruce Wayne to purchase the corporation from Aletha Prescott to prevent this new technology, this Nexus machine, from being put online. And unfortunately, while Mr. Terrific and Black Lightning are having an argument and sort of like catching up on old times, so to speak, the thing does go online, and of course the worst thing happens. There's a massive explosion. Black Lightning and Mr. Terrific are called in to help out, and then they end up ultimately having to defeat I forget the name of the villain that they took out. Cormorant was the
Yeah,
guy that
yeah.
Cormorant. And in any event, they think it's over. They think the battle's over. But you can see creeping up behind them on the final page, it looks like it's Aletha Prescott, because she's gained some powers from that Nexus machine. And we're going to see what those powers are exactly. I have a sneaking suspicion that his son, Mr. Terrific's son, is going to show up to help him out in that 6th issue. And that's going to be a cool issue to see, because we haven't really seen him in action at all, really. We never saw much of him in action in Flash 799, but we'll see his son. And I apologize.
Wasn't
that his first appearance? I think it was his first appearance in Flash 799. Yeah. And I apologize to people listening. I don't know Mr. Terrific. I can't remember Mr. Terrific's son's name or his superhero name. Shame on me.
Well, but he has the same superhero name as the original Mr. Terrific's sidekick, Quiz Kid.
Is that who he is? He's Quiz Kid?
Yeah, okay. because it.
Because he's got an F. He's got an F on his like looking at his design. It looks like he has an F. On his shirt, right?
You know what? You're right. I'm wrong. It is fair play. It is fair play.
Is it?
Quiz Kid. Yeah, Quiz Kid is the original Terry Sloan, and it is fair play. No, I'm getting it mixed up because I was just about to say it in the wasn't it in the Lost Children where fair play shows back up and he goes to live with Jeffrey. Is it Jeff? I think is his name. Jeffrey Holt is his name.
Oh, okay. All right.
And Quiz Kid goes to live with Jeffrey Holt and Michael Holt, and he's still Quiz Kid.
That's okay.
So that's why I'm wondering: is it $7.99 or did he show? Because all that stuff got mixed around. Because you remember Jeremy did the Flashpoint Beyond with Jeff Johns, which then led into the Stargirl and the Lost Children, and the New Golden Age, and where all those heroes showed back up, and Jeremy brought some of that stuff into Flash 799. So I can't. Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at that stuff, or maybe I'll just bug Jeremy to explain it to. And on that note, I should mention. I threw the gauntlet down about the what was her name? Who's the woman in the refrigerator? Was it Alexandra Witt?
Yeah,
Alexandra.
Oh,
Witt.
Alex DeWitt. You mean
DeWitt.
Alexandra
DeWitt?
DeWitt.
Yeah. I was like, bring her back. I won't say what Jeremy said. It's not my place to say. But what I will say is as one might expect with the controversy and that whole storyline with Mr. Or Major Disaster stuffing Alex DeWitt in the refrigerator gave rise to the term women in refrigerators and the article from Gail Simone that eventually led Gail Simone to having a career in comics. You can't imagine that DC would want to, spotlight.
Bring that up again.
Yeah, bring that up on that. So I'll just say that. So anyway, yes, I'm enjoying Mr. Terrific Year One. It is going to be interesting, like you said. We've had those first 2 or 3 pages of each issue showing, like in current time, with it looks like Mr. Terrific trying to solve a problem on Apocalypse. So few of those pages of each issue. So in issue 6, I agree with you. Like Fair Play has shown up, and he's like, "Get away from my dad," or whatever. That's great. It's almost like I want a whole issue of the present time. Obviously, I want to see what happens in the year 1 resolution as well. It's almost like we need an extra issue or a double-sized issue to tell both stories. So I guess we'll see how it all plays out. So anyway, last book we're going to talk about in detail is Justice League Unlimited, issue number 11 from writer Mark Waid. Carmen A. Dijon Domenico handles the art in this particular issue. Tamara Bonville on colors, Ariana Mayer on letters. This was a little bit of a letdown for me. I only ranked it at issue 9 or at number 9 on my list. And part of it is just, so we've had so many issues this month that lead into DC KO. So they're sort of leading into the, event in terms of, I've already read, again, it's my own fault. I've already read the prologue that comes out next week, I think, that leads into the first issue of KO. And all these issues have come to the same moment, right? Like we're going to have Superman and Booster Gold show up on the JSA or Justice League satellite rather, and tell everybody, okay, here's what we learned from what's going on, and that's the events that we just had in Superman number 30, right? So many of everything is leading to this. So much of what happens in this Justice League Unlimited series or issue rather, in this one, was a little redundant because we've seen moments and we've seen everything play out and be planned out in other issues that we've read already. Like forget about the fact that I've read ahead. That's my own fault. If this doesn't land because I've already read ahead. But even somebody that hasn't read ahead, again, so many things that have happened are already were already shown. Like, yes, Metamorpho is trying to save Time Trapper's life. Well, we already have seen flash forwards of the Time Trapper talking to the heroes of the Justice League saying, hey, you're going to have to go and fight Darkseid, or you're going to have to go do this, ABC, whatever. So we know he survives. The rest that happens here is like this. We're supposed to get the sense that they're on the brink of disaster because these super powered up parademons that Darkseid has sent in this kind of Trojan horse situation are so powerful and they're destroying the satellite, and how are they going to be? But again, even though that's supposed to be raising the stakes, we already know that the satellite's not going to be destroyed because, again, we've had the flash forward. And because there's so many characters and there's so much going on, it tends to be a very chaotic issue in a lot of ways. And as much as I love Dijon Domenico's art on things like The Flash, where it can show movement or whatever, on a book like this, where there's so many characters and so much happening, having somebody whose art style is a little bit chaotic in and of itself, it doesn't gel for me. I was a little bit overwhelmed by just the amount of lines, the amount of things that were happening on the page. It just felt like too much. As opposed to having something like that Dan Mora issue of Superman, where yes, there's a lot of action going on, but because his art style is so clean, I don't feel like my visual senses are being overwhelmed, if that makes any sense. So for that reason, this ranked a little lower for me than Justice League Unlimited usually does. So anyway, what were your? You have anything to add? What were your thoughts on it, Rocky?
Well, yeah. One thing that's happening here, and I sort of echo some aspects of your criticism, is that I like the fact that a lot's happening, and a lot of it might seem a little bit redundant because this ends with Superman. This Justice League Unlimited ends with Superman returning to the present with Booster Gold, which we just saw at the end of Superman 30. And so it's like, well, is it really necessary to have another story taking place in Justice League Unlimited? The fanboy in me says, yeah, bring it on. Why? Because it just goes to show just how prevalent the Dark Legion is. They're everywhere in time. They weren't just in the future battling Superboy-Prime and Superman and Booster Gold. They're also in some of them, like Element Lad, are in the present here, making mincemeat out of Captain Atom and pissing him off. And Time Trapper slash Doomsday is literally dying, and Martian Manhunter's performing like psychosurgery on him. And it's hard to do that because his heart is sort of like in and out of time and space, and you gotta Metamorpho had to go in there to in order to because anything that goes near tries to operate on Doomsday or slash Time Trapper is going to immediately age into oblivion. So you needed Metamorpho there to do all the work, because Metamorpho can turn into an element with a long half-life. And while all this chaos is going on, parademons are attacking the League, attacking the satellite. Mr. Terrific, who's always hard on himself, is pissed off because he's outwitted by a parademon. That's almost as bad as being outwitted by Superman. No, but in any event, this is a real good stuff, and the emotional stakes are high. There's a darkness and a creepiness that's creeping that's imbuing everything. Captain Atom gets almost filled with rage. He wants to get revenge. Clearly, there's an impact there. It's an effect of the feeling of this darkness spreading throughout the universe. Bearing in mind that we know this is all leading to the events of DCKO, that this Omega energy, this darkness, this gloom and doom, it just seems that the Justice League is barely winning these battles. They're just barely winning. How can a parademon almost outwit Mr. Terrific? Maybe, just maybe, it's because the parademon is more evil, is darker, is maybe imbuing the and what is DCKO about? Those characters that have darker energies, you gotta have some more. You gotta be more cruel. You can't be merciful, and so you can almost see the darkness creeping in all these titles. It's all building to a point, and that's why I like this. That when we review all these comics, we see the bigger picture, and that's part of the bigger picture that we're seeing. And I think it's cool, and I'm enjoying it. I agree, it's a little bit redundant at times because we're getting we get reminded of various plot points, but it's cool plot points, and it's epic. And I gotta say, all these creators, they've earned my trust. They've earned my trust. Mark Waid, Jeremy Adams, and just the advertisement, DCKO, the way everything's been handled by DC going into October. In DC, I trust. And so even though Justice League Unlimited, ironically enough, I had it at number 11 too, but no disrespect to it. I still enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, but I just it was still a fun comic to read.
Yeah, definitely a fun comic to read, which is interesting when we'll talk about another fun comic, new fun, in just a second. But before we get to that, again, those are the books that we're going to talk about in detail. Actually, just about all the books that DC is putting out this week, other than some reprints. There are a ton of other printings for other issues of Absolute. I ran them all down last time. I'm not going to run them down. But if you are missing issues of Absolute Martian Manhunter or Superman or Wonder Woman, hopefully you can pick them up this week. But in addition to that, there is a facsimile for New Fun #1, which is, in case you didn't know, it's the first comic that DC put out ever. And they weren't even called DC then, national publications. But not only was it the first DC comic, this was the first comic that ever really existed in terms of comic book form. Before that, you had comics as, newspaper strips. And there were some books that were kind of, in the shape or form of comics that were those newspaper strips collected. But New Fun Comics #1 was the first comic book that had all original material, where it wasn't newspaper comic strips reprinted. So definitely a piece of history. If you're so inclined, again, you can pick it up. There's a facsimile edition coming out this week. In terms of collections this week, we've got Challengers of the Unknown trade paperback that collects the 6-issue Challenger of the Unknown series, written by Christopher Cantwell, with art mostly by Sean Isaacs, that spun out of Absolute Power. We also have the Flash Omnibus by Joshua Williamson. This is the second omnibus, is volume 2, collecting issues 64, collecting issues 36 through 30. I can't even talk. 36 through 69, as well as Flash Annual 1 and 2 from Joshua Williamson's Flash run. So some people like his Flash run, some people don't. So your mileage may vary, but that is out. And I should also give the price. I mean, it's a huge tome, obviously. It's 968 pages, $125. We also have Supergirl Univers End trade paperback, which collects Action Comics. This is when Supergirl was starring in Action Comics. So it's Action Comics 1070 through 1081, as well as the Supergirl special. 176 pages, $20. We also have Metamorpho. That's the Al Ewing Metamorpho series that Rocky and I really enjoyed, all 6 issues of that. And then finally, JLA Earth 2 Deluxe Edition hardcover. This is collecting the All-Star Superman, Batman and Robin, Flex Mentello, Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly. This is their JLA Earth 2, kind of an Elseworlds story, if you will. All right. So that does it for the collections. Time for our rankings. I'll let you fire away first there, Rocky.
Okay, coming in at number 15 was Flash 25. 14, I put History of the DCU 3, although that's a little bit unfair because it's a history book. Anyways, 13, coming in at 13, Wonder Woman 25. Number 12 was Catwoman 79. Number 11 was Justice League Unlimited. Number 11. Number 10 was Mr. Terrific Year 1, Issue 5. Coming in at number 9 was Harley Quinn 54. Number 8, Superman Unlimited. Number 5. Number 7, Immortal Legend Batman Issue 2. Coming in number 6, Green Arrow 28. And my top 5 are as follows. Number 5, DCV Vampires World War 4, Issue 12. Number 4, Detective Comics 1101. Coming in at number 3 was Absolute Wonder Woman 12. And coming in at number 2 was Superman 30. And coming in at number 1 for me was Green Lantern 27, Jeremy Adams. I had to go with it. I had a blast with it, and I bet you yours is going to be that too. But Green Lantern 27 came in at number 1 for me.
Yeah, close, very close, very close. Yeah, we have quite a few that are the same. So number 15 for me, Flash. So we're definitely the same on that one. Number 14, I have DC versus Vampires, number 12. So we're wildly apart on that one. 13 for me, same as you, Wonder Woman number 25. At number 12, I have Harley Quinn, number 54. At number 11 is Catwoman. So we'll only one apart on that one. At number 10, New History of the DCU. Number 9, Justice League Unlimited, number 2. At number 8, I have Absolute Wonder Woman, number 12. So we're pretty far apart on that one. Number 7, just like you, I have Immortal Legend Batman, number 2. At number 6, I have Mr. Terrific Year 1, number 5. At number 5, Green Arrow, number 28. At number 4, I've got Superman Unlimited, number 5. At number 3, Detective Comics 1101. At number 2, I have Green Lantern number 27.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. It was awesome. But Superboy-Prime is my boy. And I just loved Superman number 30. Like I fully planned on picking Green Lantern number 27 because, again, I read them in the order that they were in our press folder. So, yeah, I read Green Lantern 27 way before Superman. And I was like, oh, that's going to be my book of the week, 100%. I immediately had to go and read part 6 of the event because I loved it so much. But then I got to Superman number 30 and I was just like, oh, man, I read that. And then I immediately flipped back through it to reread some of the moments. And, yeah, I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. So,
yeah. That's good.
Anyway, so that's going to do it, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in as always. Don't forget, if you're checking us out on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell on Rocky's channel so you don't miss out on any of the content that comes out. If you are listening audio only and you want to head over to YouTube and subscribe, it's Comic Space Boom ! And we really appreciate the support. Don't forget, you can also head over to the Comic Source YouTube channel. Just do a search for the Comic Source on YouTube. Again, like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. All my other interviews and what have you all come out on that channel. And then all the content comes out on the podcast feed. So if you prefer audio only when you're exercising or riding the subway or whatever, just head over to your favorite podcasting app or platform, do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. And you have thousands and thousands of past episodes to go back and explore with interviews and convention coverage and what have you. Speaking of conventions, don't forget, I'm trying to make it to New York Comic Con. Appreciate any donations anybody has. Just scan the QR code on the screen there or head over to the webpage, Comic Source webpage, and you can find it there to scan as well. So appreciate it. Don't forget to leave comments below if you're interested in us doing a live show at all and, talking about whatever. We don't necessarily have to talk about independent books or favorite books. We can talk about anything you guys want. If you show up and ask questions, we'll be happy to do so. So let us know if you guys are interested in that. And yeah, that's going to do it. So big week, a little bit of a bigger episode than we've done in a while. And yeah, that's going to do it. Appreciate everybody showing up as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.